I didn't even have like a waiting screen this time. Sorry. There was some stuff going on. There was some stuff going on. I just noticed that the stream time starts going. It was stuff going on. Hello, Mr. Cowboy. All right. I wonder if I should give it some time and go back to like the starting screen just to give people some time to show up. But it's not like you're gonna miss much. It's not like people are gonna miss much for showing up a little later, right? Right? Hmm. And now my cat is sad. Well, I don't know if he's sad. He's making noises that can be interpreted as sad, so I hope he's okay. All we can do is hope that Mr. Kitty is doing well. Isn't that right, Mr. Kitty? I guess I could go check on him. Anyway, hi. I'll go check on him if it seems like he only made one noise. So I'll go check on him if he starts getting a bit more insistent. He knows how to get my attention if he needs it. Okay. Hi. I'm Mylan. Today, we are working on semester prep. The semester is coming. I say that as ominously as possible. And you know what that means? You know what that means? That means that the time has come to start updating our slides. Today's slides are for my Understanding the Self lecture. And these are the slides that we must update today. It is the truth. So we are going to work hard. We're going to try and update our slides. This will involve a lot of shenanigans, probably, and things like that. By shenanigans, I mean I'm going to be like toggling back and forth. I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff. I need to like look up some. This is where we get into the actual research that I'm going to be talking about, so I'm going to have to check to make sure all the stuff that I'm teaching about actually replicates, see if there's any new exciting findings in this area, all that good stuff. So we gotta, it's gonna be a wacky time. And you're here to hold me accountable and make sure that I keep working. That's the general goal of this whole activity. How does that sound? Hopefully that sounds okay. I hope it sounds okay. That is, because that's the ultimate goal, isn't it? Okay. So, we get to work. Understanding the self. All right, so this lecture covers self-concept, the ways that we learn about ourselves and determine who we are, and then it talks a bit about social comparison and self-esteem. So I guess that's the stuff I'm going to have to focus on today. And let's see, I saved myself a resource earlier. So one of the tips that I got, let me find where I put this. One of the tips that I got when I was first learning to teach was what you do when you are first teaching a class is you have to identify a textbook. And this can be a textbook that you end up assigning to your students, or it can be just a textbook, but your goal is to find two textbooks, actually. You don't want just one textbook. You find two textbooks for whatever class you're teaching. One textbook is the best textbook that you can find. It is a really good textbook. And then the second textbook is the second best textbook you can find. And the tip that I was given was you take the best textbook and you keep that for yourself. You keep the best textbook and you use that to create the class. And then you assign your students the second best textbook. This was the tip that I was given. I don't know how I feel about that tip, and like I try and assign well, actually when I'm assigning my textbook, my main priority with a textbook is assigning my students an affordable textbook. That's like my main priority, which usually means if I can find an open access textbook that's like completely free, that is my number one priority. So, because like I have a grudge against textbook companies. Textbook companies, I was spending like $300 a semester on textbooks alone, and I did not think that was okay. And I got real mad about it. And I was one of the students who actually read all of the assigned readings before class. because I was a goody two shoes student, you know? So like I would actually read the textbooks and stuff, but I even then I was really mad that I was spending that much money on textbooks in a given semester. And I know not all students actually do the readings. In fact, from like informal polling of my students, it sounds like the majority of my students don't do a textbook. Hey Bobo, how you doing? $300 for one textbook was in the business side of my dual masters. That is so bad. I'm so sorry. I think the most expensive textbooks I got were typically only about $160, but that's still way too much. That is still way too much for a textbook. That is just way, like even the used textbooks were like minimum $60, and that is just not okay. So like if all possible, I do try and assign free open access textbooks. They required software and it expired that is so stupid. You know what really pisses me off? This latest trend of like, sorry, of textbook companies having, you know, an integrated website. And what they do is like, and then teachers will just use like the textbook quizzes and the textbook exams and stuff like that, which means that you have to buy the textbook to complete the assignments. And like it's a one-use code, you know, to get in. So a lot of students don't read the textbooks. They're just buying the textbook for a code so they can complete the assignments in class. And like I'm somewhat sympathetic to that, but also, you know, you should be reading the textbook. But the main thing that bugs me is like just you shouldn't have to pay that much just for a code to take a quiz, you know? Like that is just stupid. Meanwhile, the bio side was like, here's a photocopy of the book from the library. Oh man, I never knew how to feel about professors that did that, because like honestly, a lot of the time the photocopies were really bad quality and hard to read. Like I was glad that they were saving me money, don't get me wrong. But those were not good photocopies. And like they'd sometimes they would hand out photocopies, which was very nice, but other times I would have to print them. And because, you know, it's a photocopy, the edges of the page are surrounded by like darkness because the photocopier was bigger than the book or whatever. And it took a lot of ink. It used up a whole lot of ink. And I don't think that my university had like a student printing budget. Like the university where I work, students get a printing budget. But at the university that I went to, I don't recall having a printing budget, so I would have like we were paying for our own ink and stuff like that. So it really sucked. And I like to print things out because when I went to undergrad, there wasn't a lot of, you know, like good resources for taking notes online. And also like I knew, you know, there's psychological studies showing that you remember things better if you well, at least for me also, like if you take notes by hand, you tend to remember things better. I don't know how that goes for like writing with a stylus on a tablet. I imagine it's similar to writing on paper, but like I preferred to take all my notes by hand and stuff like that and like write directly on the page if I was reading a textbook or a reader. Or the programmer move of here's the 7th edition. I photocopied the one section they changed. The 7th was like $30 versus the 80 or 100. You know what I do for my stats class? I don't actually require a textbook for my stats class. But I do have supplementary readings. Like if students are confused on a concept, what I do is I list a textbook chapter for every single lesson, and I don't expect my students to read any of them. They're completely optional, but like, you know, if they do. And I found like my favorite textbook. It was a textbook that actually made stats start making sense to me personally. Hey Astral, happy to have you here. But yeah, what I did was because statistics doesn't really change over time, you don't really need the latest textbook for it. Like, I don't even really know how they update textbooks all that much in stats, because like it doesn't change that much, you know? Like, at least the basic stuff, like ANOVAs and t-tests, those aren't really going to change all that much. Maybe standards for using them will change, but the math is not going to change. So what I do is I tell them, here's the textbook. I literally do not care what edition you get. You can find certain editions of this textbook online for free. I do not care which edition you get your hands on. I'm not listing by chapter number because I know that they swap around chapter numbers based on the edition. I'm just going to list the chapter title. So get whatever edition of this textbook you want. here's the title of the chapter. Find the chapter that has that title or something close to it. Read that chapter. That's what you need. That's what I like to do. Mm. For this class, though, social psych, this does change a lot. That's why I'm updating my slides, because social psych is an ever-changing area of study for a lot of reasons, both because of the replication crisis and also because social psych is highly contextual, which means that different historical events, different world events, different trends, different, like, regardless of, like, replication is one thing, and then just, like, the world changing will change effects in social psychology. So this is something you have to constantly update, so I do need to be careful about, like, textbook edition here, but I'm currently using an open source textbook for this class as well. But I did find the whole point of this rant was that I found another open source textbook that I'm going to be using to make sure that I'm not missing anything important. And the nice part about this textbook is that, actually, oddly enough, a lot of the editors on this textbook also wrote chapters for the other textbook that I actually assigned. But I recognize the names of 3 out of 4 of the editors for this textbook I'm going to be using to make sure I'm not missing anything big. And they are, like, huge names in social psych, which I consider a good sign, because, like, most of these people on here, like, the people who I know, all have pretty good reputations as both good scientists and also good people, which, is a plus. Yeah, for the crisis communication in business, they had to update the books because business found a new way to mess up, requiring oh no. Yeah, that sounds about right. Business scares me. I'm not gonna lie. I worked in a business school for a year, and, like, there were many perks to working in a business school, but also I was afraid. I was a lab manager, and it was incredible. Like, this was a pretty well-renowned business school. This was, like, not only was it a business school, and for those of you who are unaware, business schools have so much money. Like, compared to a psychology department, a business department might be actually, like, especially in, like, the marketing area or whatever, they might be doing very similar research to a psychology department, or, like, even almost indistinguishable from a psychology department. But they get so much money. It was, dates me, the beginning of Twitter and social media, so they're having to talk about how you can mess up on social. That's a very important topic. Definitely something you want to make sure to cover, and if you're not covering it, you need that. Oh my gosh. Oh, especially in this day and age. Holy cow. Yeah, it's business department. Yeah, they swim in money. Like, the business department that I was working in as a lab manager, they had this room, and it was like, it was a supply room, and it wasn't a supply closet. It was a whole supply room the size of a small classroom, and it had shelves, and it was just, you could go in there and take stuff. There was no like recording of this either. Like, you didn't need to, like, record that you had taken stuff. You could just go in there and take stuff. And they had, like, I don't think they had printer cartridges. I don't think they were, like, that intense, but they had, like, notebooks and pens, and they literally had, like, little packets of aspirin and stuff. And as long as you were working there, you could go in there and you can grab, like, a whole package of printer paper. You could grab a spiral bound notebook. You could grab a pen. You could grab a highlighter. You could grab, like, all this stuff. You just go in there, grab the thing, and leave. And that was, like, just a resource that they had available to you because you worked at a business school. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. I dream of that. I dream of that. Currently, like, at the school that I work at right now, I think the most you can really do is, like, you can, if the printer runs out of printer paper, you can grab printer paper. And also, you can grab yourself a few sheets of printer paper if you want scrap paper. But I think that's about it. And, like, also you have to kind of, if you're grabbing more than a few sheets of printer paper, I think you need to notify people. It's not nearly as... They had a special lab for trading. That was a simulator for the students. They were integrated with Wall Street. They just had to take... Business schools are something else, man. Business schools are something else. When I was deciding on what to go to grad school for, because the year I was applying to grad schools, was the year I was working in the business school. And I was, like, looking for advice on what I should apply to, because, like, At the time, my advisor, or not my advisor, my PI, the PI of the lab that I was managing, was kind of like, he was trying to give me advice, and I think he almost would have been happy to have me apply to his lab. Uh, but also he was like, he had a very, he was the sweetest guy. He was a really nice guy, and he was just like, look, you can make a lot more money if you work in a business school. And I know that might, like, you're set, not only will you have many more resources for research, which is already incredible, your salary will be much higher as well. Like, we're talking tens of thousands higher a year if you work at a business school versus a psychology department. However, if you get your PhD from a business school, you can only work at business schools. If you get your PhD in psychology, you can work in psychology departments and business schools. So it gives you more options on the job market, which is part of the reason I chose to go psychology instead of business. But there are certainly advantages to working in a business school if you can. I know some really incredible psychologists who work in business schools, and they don't even really do business-related research. Like, I mean, for the job talk, I imagine they had to spin it as, like, here's how this could be useful for business or whatever. But, like, their research itself is not what you would think of if you're thinking of what, like, a business school would be doing for research. They're just psychologists working in a business school with a lot more resources and a lot more pay. It's a pretty sweet deal. That is not my, I'm definitely in a psychology department, but I was never in it for the money. Like, if you're getting your PhD, chances are you're not in it for the money. Like, people say, you know, like, getting a higher degree will get you more money, and I think to an extent that's true for getting your master's, but for your PhD, no, not really. You should only get your PhD if you need to get a PhD for one reason or another. And it can be a really stupid reason that you need to get a PhD, but you shouldn't do it to maximize earning potential because it's not going to do that. Like, the chances that having a PhD actually bumps up your paycheck feels pretty low. Oh man. Anyway, okay, right. I was editing this PowerPoint. That's the whole point of this stream is so I edit this PowerPoint. I finished the PowerPoint that I was working on the other stream. Hey, Inks, welcome. I mean, if you do a PhD and go into industry, it does, doesn't it? No. Because if you're going into industry, usually a master's is perfectly sufficient. Like, I have a lot of friends who went into industry with their PhD, and they're not making any more than their coworkers who came into industry with a master's. Like, if you want to go into industry, if you intend to go into industry, and that's, like, specifically what you want to do, there is no reason to get your PhD. Like, I'm talking from a psychologist perspective. I don't know if this differs by field, but from a psychology perspective, if you intend to go into industry, there is zero reason to get your PhD. Just stop at a master's. It is kind of whack. It might be different in clinical. Maybe I could see it being different in clinical. Yeah, but the main thing that industry wants, the thing is, like, it's about what industry wants. Industry wants you to be able to know how to conduct research. And typically to know how to conduct research, to an extent, like to the extent that industry needs it, all you need is a master's. PhD is more about your ability to conduct research independently and make sure that research is, like, super internally and externally valid and stuff like that and replicable. And with a PhD, your goal, like, the whole point, again, is, like, that you can do an independent research. You can do research on your own. You can do every stage of the research process on your own to a certain standard. A master's is more about teaching you how to conduct research, just in general, not necessarily on your own from beginning to end. I mean, it's going to depend on the program, of course, but, like, there's less expectation of independent with a master's, and from talking with my friends who are, like, in research and research adjacent positions in industry, they're working as parts of teams, and that's expected. Different per field. As head of the lab, I need the PhD, but anyone on my team masters enough. That sounds about right. That sounds about right. I've always wondered. I probably shouldn't ask too many personal details, but like, I've never been sure, Bobo, if you work at a university or if you work at some kind of company. But it's a biotech and chem, yeah. I have a friend who works in biotech who's only has a master's. Or I don't want to say only because I don't want to like, I don't want to put down all the effort that she's put in. She's super smart and she's incredible, and I'm pretty sure that the department that she's in would collapse around her if she ever left because she's the only one who knows how to work the machines. But yeah, she has a master's. She didn't need to get a PhD, but you've been at a uni and you're in industry now. Nice, nice. That's an interesting thing because you've seen both sides of it, which is pretty cool, I think. Oh, good kitty. It's really hot here today, so my cat is lying directly in the path of the air conditioning. He's very good at that. He's a good man. This little kitty, little Mr. Kitty, little Mr. Soma, he does not like, he's not a cat that likes sunbeams. He's got really long fur, so he gets hot really, there's something about his fur that just absorbs heat, so he cannot lie in sunbeams without overheating in like 0.5 seconds, but he will lie in the path of the air conditioner all day. Yeah, but yeah, like psychology research, at least in industry, you absolutely do not need a PhD, and getting a PhD will not raise your paycheck. But it sounds like, yeah, with biotech and chem, perhaps having a PhD will allow you to have a higher position and therefore theoretically a higher paycheck. Any questions can always be DM'd. V-Theorem gets a pass. Hey, thank you! I will not abuse this. I will not abuse this pass. I will not abuse this privilege. I promise. Okay, right. The whole point. Editing the... Okay. Thanks. Okay, the self, I, and me. So what is the self? This goes into the... Okay, so this slide is talking about the history of what the self is. I should see if this nice going to scrub in and work with the cell cultures. Have fun! Say hi to the cell cultures for me. I want them to be my friends. I will become friends with the cell cultures. Alright, let's look. Self and identity. Perfect. Oh, I know the people who wrote this chapter. They were people that I worked with, actually, when I was a lab manager. That's cool. Well, I didn't work directly with them, but I met with them a lot. I actually interviewed with one of them to be their grad student, and that didn't work out. Oh, that's cool. I love seeing the names of people I know. I'm really bad with names, but... like, so it feels extra rewarding when I recognize a name and I can, like, put a face to that name and be like, hey, I know that. And also it's like, you know, like, it's that feeling where, like, you're watching a movie and you see an actor and you recognize the actor and you didn't know that they were in the movie. It's like that same feeling, like, when I read an article or, like, the other day... I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but like for fun, sometimes I participate in online studies for kicks and giggles. I see that a lot with Doctor Who actors. Yeah. I've heard that's pretty common in British television because there's like a lot of actors who are in a lot of different things. And Doctor Who's kind of like the place where everybody ends up at some point or another that's kind of been what I've heard. But yeah, like, I don't know, it feels cool. It's like, hey, I know that guy. Hey, I know that guy. And it's like extra cool. It's like, with this, I guess it's not really a friend, but like, I wouldn't consider myself friends with these people, though I was on I had a pretty decent rapport, I think, with both of them, but I doubt they remember me now, so many years later. But it's kind of like, you know, like, if you were to see your coworker on the news or in a movie or something, on the news in a positive sense, it's like, hey, I know that guy. You know, when I see that. But yeah, I was participating in a study the other day, or I was scrolling through studies I could participate in, and I saw a study. This has happened a couple of times. I saw somebody running a study that I knew, and I was like, oh, that's my buddy. That's my buddy. And then I participated in the study, which frankly I probably shouldn't have done, but Because I know exactly the type of stuff that this person researches. Hey, mad computer scientists, welcome to the chat. Yeah, if an actor's British, they probably have been in Who. We even had Andrew Garfield. Nice. I mean, with a series that's been running that long and needs, like, that has, like, you know, one episode or two episode characters, you're gonna need to get every actor you possibly can. Hmm. Right, self and identity. Oh man. Oh man. Textbooks are hard to read sometimes. Okay. What do I have right here? Why did I put the birth and death date of this one researcher in this PowerPoint? I don't think that's really I mean, I guess it gives context to when he was saying this thing, but still. Maybe I can just, rather than saying this guy's birth and death date, I can just say, this is William James. I'm referring to I'm citing William James in this PowerPoint. So rather than saying when he was born and when he died, I could probably just say, like, founder of modern psychology, because William James and Wilhelm Wundt, I think, are both generally considered like founders of more modern psychology. Hey Kaiser Oramara, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. This is a co-working stream, I say, even though I've barely gotten any work done so far. But I'm currently updating my slides for my social psychology class this coming fall semester. We're working on a lecture about the self and what the self is and how we gain knowledge about the self, how we learn about ourselves and who we are, how we form a view of our own, like who we are as a person, how we assess our own personality and abilities and stuff like that. That's the lecture that we are currently working on updating. We are on slide 3 of 39. We have not gotten very far at all, and we have been going for nearly half an hour. I've been yapping this whole time. It's so bad. If Astro, please do not start going slides per minute on me. I will cry. I think it's a really interesting topic too. Like, this is definitely outside of my area of study, and I don't know if I'd study it myself, but it is really interesting. Like, how do we decide who we are, you know, like that kind of thing? All right, so William James distinguished between I and me. I being your sort of internal thoughts, like that kind of thing, your sense of self. I is your sense of self and self-awareness. Hey Frost, welcome! Yeah, we're only half an hour in and we've barely done anything. I've been watching too many Sidearea streams lately. I'm getting influenced. Alright, so I is your sense of self, it's your self-awareness, it's the thoughts in your head, whereas me is your perception of who you are. So, like, I am an introvert, I am a VTuber, I am this. It's like, the I is the self-awareness, and the me is what we call in social psychology self-concept. So it's like a list of things that I know about myself. Mm-hmm. So those are two aspects of the self, your self-awareness and your self-concept. Your awareness that you are an individual, I think, therefore I am. Maybe I should add that to the lecture. I think, therefore I am. That kind of feels like the I. Self-awareness versus your mental model of yourself. Exactly, Kaizen. That is exactly it. Your mental model of self-awareness versus mental model. I think, therefore I am, aka self-awareness. And me, the known self, our thoughts and beliefs about ourselves. And I really like that phrase, our mental model of yourself. Maybe I should put that in here too. I'm not sure. I think I'll keep it as it is, like, who we believe we are, I think is a nice way of phrasing that. But I think mental model of yourself is a really great way of putting it. I think that's actually a really nice, concise, and, like, precise, both concise as in short and precise as in, like, targeted way of putting it. I'm just worried that my students might get a little confused by the phrase mental model, because this is like an intro class for social psych. And we talk about, I think, mental model. I can start using that phrase from the lecture after this, where it's talking about the social world, where we start talking about things like heuristics and things like that and schemas, which are mental models. That's the hard thing about lectures. You got to consider what order the lectures are in. And that's really hard in social psychology because, like, after you get past the intro of, like, what is social psychology? How do we do social psychology? You can put everything else in whatever order you want. Like, I've reordered the lessons in this class so many times. Which means I have to be very careful that I'm doing that, like, I explain a concept before I use it again. And that means often, like, updating my slides to make sure. All right. I don't think there probably hasn't been any, like, major innovation in what a self-schema is. I think that's just a construct, not necessarily, like, a finding. So self-schemas are the me. The self-concept. And then in parentheses, to tie it to the previous slide, I think I'll add the me part of the self. Self-concept is an individual's beliefs about their own personal attributes. I feel like personal attributes is kind of an unclear way to put it. In machine learning, a model is the way you describe something in the real world in more abstract terms, like an equation for a line can be a model for how home prices scale with floor. Yeah, Kaizen, you're so right. We actually use that in psychology pretty similarly, because I mean, it's more than in just machine learning, it's just a statistical thing. Like, it's a statistical term. Like, we have statistical models, right? Yeah, a set of parameters that describe something in the real world. Exactly. So we have statistical models. Some of those are machine learning models, absolutely. Some of those are just like, here's a regression, Like, a regression could be... Actually, well, I guess machine learning is just a really complicated regression. So maybe they're not really different. I'm treating them like they're different things. They're not really. We talk about them like they're different things, but they're the same thing. They're the same thing. But yeah, we also have mental models that operate very similarly to how machine learning models and statistical models work. Like, of course, they're not exactly the same. The metaphor of the brain as a computer is definitely not a perfect metaphor. But I think the way that we use the word model in both contexts is very, 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 very similar. It's just like a set of assumptions that we use to predict things. Yeah, I would say. A set of assumptions that we use to predict things by running information through those assumptions. And by some assumptions, you can replace that with the word parameters if you prefer. Right, okay. Let's see. Does this textbook have anything useful that I might want to add to this PowerPoint? I think this PowerPoint is actually a good length, so I don't really need to add anything to it, but if there's anything like that, I think is important. Machine learning is just statistical regression, go burr. Exactly. Exactly. A lot of my students will, like, I teach stats, and a lot of my students will say, like, why do I need to learn about statistics? Why do I care about statistics? I'm never going to use statistics. And I'm like, do you use AI? I know a lot of you probably use AI. I know a lot of you probably use things like Netflix and TikTok. Anything with an algorithm, anything with AI in it, that's just statistics. It's literally, you are using statistics constantly. Whenever you're doom scrolling or whenever you're, like, watching brain rot or whatever, that's statistics. We got a funny graph math, which for almost all high school math, you could depict in a 1x3 matrix. And with AI ML, we got a funny graph math, except it's bigger matrices. Exactly, Frost. Oh, yeah, because biological neural networks are basically tiny input-output prediction machines. Yeah, Kaizen, exactly. I think that's, like, it is a bit of a problem that, like, we call sufficiently advanced machine learning, we start referring to, well, even calling it machine learning implies that it's learning, and our AI implies that there is intelligence there. So I worry that, and also, like, treating the brain like a computer, like, input reliably leads to same output. I think we tend to overlap the brain and computing far more than we should, which leads us to make cognitive errors in judging how brains operate and how, like, machine learning algorithms and computers operate. It's a problem that we conflate them this much, both in language and in conceptualization, because it can lead to a lot of like misunderstandings and poor judgment. But as a simple metaphor, it's pretty good, you know? Like, as a rough metaphor, I think it's they do operate in fairly similar ways at a very like rough level. But if you get into the specifics, that's where problems start to happen. But yeah, at the end of the day, both of them are basically, you put information in, they do something to that information, and then something comes out of that. Maybe new information or behavior or whatever it is comes out. At the end of the day, they're both algorithms, just it's a problem to treat them as if they are the same. But like functionally, they're trying to do the same task. Take in information, use that, like incorporate and understand that information, and output some, well, I shouldn't say understand, but and then output something from that information. In fact, for the last 5 or 6 years, the Thought Emporium has been working on trying to teach a small collection of rat neurons how to play Doom. That's incredible. Yeah, like I think individual neurons, I think that's a good, like a neuron and a single calculation on a computer is a good metaphor, because at the end of the day, like a neuron, the way a neuron works is like it has a threshold. So like it takes in a signal, and that signal has to have a sufficient strength. And if that signal is of sufficient strength, the neuron sends on a message. And if that signal is not of sufficient strength, it does not send a message. Like, this is oversimplifying it hardcore. And also, like, I haven't really updated myself on neuroscience in a long time, so it might be more complicated than this. But my understanding is, and again, this might be out of date. I don't want to like claim I'm an authority on this, but my general understanding is that neurons and computer circuits work pretty similarly. It's like a binary 1-0. Like, it's weird. Well, on one end, it's hard to call what machines are doing learning. I don't know how they're different from, say, probabilistic machines, even if they have different modes of operation. No, I agree they're also probabilistic. Like, I agree that machines operating as probabilistic, like, I don't see how those two things are too different. Like, I think the problem with learning is that when we say learning in a machine, we mean it's updating its priors and creating a more accurate model that can more accurately reflect the real world. Learning in humans, I'd say, is more complicated than that. And just the human brain, there's a lot of problems with the human brain. A lot of the time, especially like when it comes to learning or updating our models, to update a model, like I've done some very basic machine learning before. I've trained some very basic machine learning models before. So I have some understanding of how this works. And part of training a machine learning model, or like trying to get a better computer program, is you have to be able to tell it when it's right or when it's wrong. You have to be able to say, oh, this is giving me the correct output, or this is giving me the incorrect output. The problem with being a human being and learning, like, it depends on the topic of what you're learning, but sometimes, depending on the topic, there may not be a clear yes or no answer. I imagine there's a lot of plasticity in humans that defies supervised learning. Yeah. And also humans are weird in that, like, computers will reliably do the same thing every time, which is why we have, like, things like we have to create random seeds and stuff to add some noise into it. Because human beings, they might get exactly the same information in, but output completely different conclusions based on their mood, based on how awake they are, based on what's going on in their life. Like, computers are much more consistent than human beings, I would say. Human beings, there's a lot more sources of information going into the model that may be completely irrelevant to the information that you're actually supposed to be processing, which can lead to a lot of shenanigans. Even when we're told whether something's right or wrong, we always have a supervised and unsupervised learning running in tandem in order to lead to more fuzzy learning. Yeah, because a neuron's either sending a spike or it isn't, but the synaptic strengths and thresholds vary, are analog values. Yes. Plus, having worked with teaching little kids, they tend to mix everything into topics they're dealing with, even if it's completely unrelated. Yeah. See, that's the main... The next lecture I have to update, actually, after this one, is actually very related to everything y'all are saying right now. And it's that the problem with human beings processing information is that we incorporate a lot of completely irrelevant information into any information processing we do. Whether that's our mood, whether that's something that we learned like last week, whether that's like Frost was saying, and like what Maury is confirming. Hi Maury, I'm happy to have you. Like all of these things going, it's like when I'm with kids, I'm like 3 + 3 = 6, yes? And they say yes, but they don't get, yeah, that too. Like you can give them information. With a computer, it just takes that information as gospel. But like kids are like, why? And like that's good because that's part of the learning process. Computers don't need to understand why. If you tell them to do it, they'll just do it. They don't need the why of it. Humans need the why of it, which also means that humans are a lot more flexible than computers because we can create like it's a whole thing. Like a computer cannot work beyond the information that it is given, that it is provided with. Humans can, which can be a good thing in some cases and can be a very bad thing in other cases. If Superman has 2 friends, how many friends? Oh, 3, and 3 more? 6. Like, how do they do math but not the number? I know, it's so interesting. The human brain is fascinating, frankly. So we're fighting in machine learning models, basically running Bayes' theorem on a set of hypotheses or predictions by feeding it more and more data. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I don't know too much about Bayesian stuff, but yeah, machine learning models are... The interesting thing about machine learning models too, though, is that they can like make decisions and things like, or well, they can find patterns that human beings would never identify. Like we refer to them as black box models sometimes, or at least like in the area that I was like dealing with them, we refer to them as black box models. So like I was creating a machine learning model that could distinguish between news articles. I shouldn't get too specific because it could dox me. But I was creating a machine learning algorithm that could distinguish between one type of news article and another type of news article. So I trained it on a bunch of stuff. I put in a bunch of information, and it found things that could distinguish between these 2 types of article. And like you can look and see, like, here's the information that it's using to judge this, or like, here are the features of the news articles that it is using them to sort them into these 2 categories. These are the features that it has identified that, you know, separate out these articles. And sometimes it makes sense, and it's like, oh, that is something that I as a human being would also have used to sort these articles. And other times machines are picking up on patterns that make no freaking sense to me. Like this article, this type of news article tends to capitalize this specific word more often than this type of news article. And I never, or like they'll say, I am distinguishing between these 2 news articles based on the word the. And like, there's no way I as a human being would have thought to distinguish between these 2 articles based on that single word, right? And it's just, humans often and humans are chaotic and sensitive to initial conditions. Absolutely, Kaizen. I think that's the main difference between computer, like, so-called learning and reasoning as opposed to human human learning and reasoning, is that computers are consistent. Humans are using they're making all kinds of crazy connections and chaotic, and very sensitive to whatever conditions the reasoning is happening under, how the information is presented and all that stuff. Whereas computers only pay attention to what you tell them to pay attention to, or the resources that you give them in that specific case. Humans often have their own systems and try and deal with the fuzzy. Machines tend to be punished way harder for fuzziness. This is also true. Humans aren't punished as much for fuzziness. Imagine flooding a human with 20 years of memories for getting some pattern wrong. Dang, that would be so much. Oh my gosh. Yeah, sorry, Maury. I'm sorry. I'm just streaming based on vibes lately. The co-working streams are completely unpredictable. I say co-working, we're only on slide 4 or something out of 39. A regular human might have different weight sets based on which source they're getting their info from. True. And they tend not to update their hypotheses unless they screw it up or blow up in their face. Also true. And even if they screw it up or it blows up in their face, they may not update their hypotheses. We humans are very, very attached to our initial assumptions. Very attached to our initial assumptions. It's very difficult for us to get rid of those initial assumptions, even if they are defeated time and time again. Think of the fact that we got a lot of flat earthers in the real world. Yeah. Like, I study belief in conspiracy theories. That's one of my specialties. And, like, more broadly, I've done a lot of work in political psychology. So, like, I am deeply aware that human beings are incredibly capable of clinging to faulty or biased information in the face of overwhelming disconfirming evidence. We're very good at that. I say we as if I'm a human being. Clearly, I'm a cryptid, but you know how it is. You know, cryptids are prone to the same biases as humans, unfortunately. Whew. I'm really enjoying this conversation, but I'm not getting any work done. Self-concept. We're talking about... I need to look at these slides about self-concept, see if they're okay. An individual's beliefs about personal attributes. So, like, characteristics. How best can we approach someone who's stuck in one of their easily disprovable conspiracy beliefs? Great question, and there's no good answer to that. It's surprise information that will help you later. Yes! A lot of people have looked into ways to reduce conspiracy beliefs, and there's not really a good way to do it. It doesn't seem like, because a lot of these conspiracy beliefs are very resistant to change. And, like, it's not necessarily, like, you can disprove certain aspects of conspiracy belief, but the problem with that is that conspiracy theories, it seems to be that conspiracy theories are not about the details. Like, if you prove that, well, there definitively was not, say, or we found the person who was on the grassy knoll or whatever, or we found the person who was holding the umbrella at the JFK assassination, and that person has just said they were holding an umbrella as a protest to some of JFK's policies, which is a thing that happened. Or, like, it was some sort of critique of JFK is why they were holding the umbrella. And this was, like, a cornerstone of, like, JFK assassination conspiracy theories for a long time, is, like, this guy is holding an umbrella on a sunny day. And that's been shown, like, it has a logical explanation. The guy has talked about it directly. There's nothing suspicious about that explanation. But that doesn't matter, because the details of a conspiracy theory don't matter. The logistics of how the conspiracy occurred do not matter to conspiracy theorists. The vast majority of conspiracy theorists do not care about the details. They care... It's more about saying something is fishy than it is saying, here's specifically what happened. It's not about what happened. It's more about questioning the event. So if this conspiracy theory suddenly doesn't hold water, well, I can just change the details of the conspiracy theory, or I can switch to a different conspiracy theory entirely. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you disprove that like, jet fuel can't melt steel beams or whatever. That doesn't matter. Because they can just hop to the next conspiracy theory. They're not attached to the specific explanation. They are attached to saying, this is fishy. Something's going on here. Like, there's this really cool paper that I think demonstrates this incredibly well, about conspiracy theories about Princess Diana's death, that shows that people who believe one conspiracy theory, let's say that the royal family had Princess Diana assassinated, are also more likely to believe a conspiracy theory that Princess Diana faked her own death. And naturally, these two theories are completely contradictory. If Princess Diana was assassinated, she did not fake her own death. If Princess Diana faked her own death, she was not assassinated. One of them supposes that she is currently alive, the other one supposes that she is currently dead, and they have completely different explanations for that event. But people who believe one are also more likely to believe the other, even though they completely contradict each other. Like, that's That's the thing about conspiracy theories. The details, the specific theory does not matter. It's more about either saying, I think this event is fishy, or trying to place the blame on someone. I lean more towards trying to place the blame on someone, but sorry, okay. Sometimes I feel the best way to dispel a conspiracy theory is to replace it with another one. Yeah, but at that point, it's like, are you actually accomplishing anything? I mean, it depends on what your goal is, you know? Like, if you're trying to shift the blame, that could work. Or if you're trying to, like, specifically bring the heat off of, like, a specific individual, or whatever it is, replacing the conspiracy theory could work, but it's not really addressing the underlying problem, right? It depends on what you're trying to do. That's one of the reasons I actually like to work with computers more than people, because computers don't get emotional, so they aren't as confusing. That's true. Computers can have very strange, I don't want to say logic. The problem with computers is they do exactly what you tell them, which makes debugging code really difficult, because, like, computers interpret things a lot more literally than humans do, which means we have a very difficult time understanding why computers are doing what they're doing when something goes wrong. Pros and cons. Yeah, it was apparently referencing Neville Chamberlain out of protest. Yeah, I think that's what the umbrella thing was. It was referencing some, like, British politician or something. Conspiracy beliefs are also good at making people feel like they belong, right? I'm not actually sure. Hey, Appa! Happy to have you. So conspiracy theory, people who believe conspiracy theories do tend to feel more alienated from society. They do tend to feel more alienated from society than other people. I don't know if believing a conspiracy theory, though, actually makes people feel they belong. I do have kind of a pet theory, and apparently somebody has written a paper about this. I haven't read yet. But I do think that conspiracy theories can, like, expressing a conspiracy theory can show solidarity with the group that you belong to. Like, I agree that those guys are bad. See, I'm a good group member because I agree with this thing that we're saying about the bad guys, right? And I think to that extent, it can reinforce group boundaries. I don't know. I don't know if it's good at making people feel like they belong. I need to do further, like, investigation on that. I need to do further reading, because I'm not sure how, like, people who feel like they don't belong are more likely to believe conspiracy theories. But of course, that's a correlation. It's not causation. Who knows what's going on there? I come from a country where the LGBTQIA are severely mistreated. Oh no. Being part of it, I've gotten to see just how ironclad the bonds are between them here due to their shared isolation in society. This is true. This is true. And one thing that I found in my own research is that conspiracy theories are more common in echo chambers. Conspiracy theories are more common in groups of people who only associate with people who share their beliefs. So in that way, people who believe conspiracy theories are to some extent isolated from broader society. But with the way the internet works anyway, all of us are already kind of isolated from society as a whole. All of us are in our own custom echo chambers to an extent. And, like, breaking out of those echo chambers, like, I actively try and look at conversations and things like that from people that I vehemently disagree with. Like, that's the thing that I actively do, and it's not fun. It sucks. It feels really bad. Oh, man. So imagine this. If there was a conspiracy theory that was rooted within LGBT identity, even those who weren't prone to conspiracy theory would be motivated simply to accept the echo chamber. Yeah. I agree. My sort of pet theory, that's great. I'm really glad. Like, back when I first started on this, like, decided that this was the main driver of conspiracy theories, back when I first concluded that, this was very much not, almost no one was talking about it, and I'm very happy to see it's becoming more prominent as an explanation in the literature. But my personal view of conspiracy theories is that their primary purpose is to facilitate intergroup conflict. A conspiracy theory inherently is saying those guys are the bad guys and we are the blameless victims. Like, they are the evil perpetrators, we are the blameless victims. So every conspiracy theory, well, not every conspiracy theory, but most of the more like realistic conspiracy theory, I'm not talking like aliens and stuff, but maybe not facilitate intergroup conflict, but reinforce intergroup conflict is what I mean. Like, yeah, exactly. It contributes to further in-grouping. It reinforces that we are the good guys and they are the bad guys. Hey guy, welcome. The most common conspiracy theories vary between countries. For example, in France, conspiracy theories linked to health are more popular, not surprising given our history of political health scandals. Yeah. And like, depending on which country you're in, you'll see different types of conspiracy theories or like different target groups. So like, in the US, we have a lot of conspiracy theories about, say, like Russia being involved in something, and historically the US has had conflict with Russia, or like, you know, but like if you're in a different area where there's conflicts with different groups, we tend to have conspiracy theories that are relevant to us, right? Like that are relevant to our particular groups. So let's say I'm in Japan, and Japan and Korea historically have not had a great relationship. I'm more likely to have conspiracy theories about Korea, and Korea is more likely to have conspiracy theories about Japan, because they historically have had conflict. Whereas if you're living in the US, you might not really have conspiracy theories about, like, say, Korea, because, like, I mean, there have been wars between, say, that the US has been involved in Korea. The US has gone to war against Japan in the past, and at the time, I'm sure there were many conspiracy theories there, but they aren't really salient threats right now. As far as the US is concerned, there aren't really conspiracy theories about that. It's all about, yeah, stumbling into foreign conspiracy theories is always wild and confusing. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, depending on where you are in the world, what the salient conflict is, you'll get different conspiracy theories. And sometimes that conflict is two-sided, sometimes it's one-sided, it's the whole thing. Where it gets integrated into ideas like, do you not respect your ancestors if you refuse to use that herbal medication, even though it was YOLO created by the grandparent that didn't exist before? That's also true, yeah. That may or may not lead into, that may or may not be a conspiracy theory. There's interesting, like, there's like this interesting overlap. Let's see, so there's this man, I'm not getting any work done. This has really become a just chatting stream. Let's see. Window soft reminder, your slides. Thank you, Frost. I want to make one interesting point, because I do think it is really interesting. An interesting thing to talk about, as long as we're talking about conspiracy theories. Wow, that didn't work, did it? That doesn't work at all. Come on, capture the correct window. Does this not work? Do you not like me anymore? Oh. Boo. Boo. Oh, what? Hello? Anyway, let's see if this works. Okay, so here's conspiracy theories. Okay, yeah, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. I'm getting rid of that. Do I have to pull up, like, Clip Studio Paint for something this silly? Do I? Okay. It's important to me, so I'm gonna show you. Let's see. Oh god, I'm wide. I've become very wide. There. Okay, so, okay. Let me... Here we go. So, the interesting thing I think about conspiracy theories is that wide Lynn Aikman. Yeah. So you have conspiracy theories right here. I'm gonna draw us a Venn diagram. Actually, let me make this wider. So you have conspiracy theories here. And then you have misinformation. Wait, let me do that again. You have misinformation. I should probably add text. Oh, I have my tablet. I can just write stuff. Okay. So this is misinformation. misinformation. So that's just stuff that's just straight up false, right? And these are conspiracy theories. Right? Okay, so the interesting thing, I think, and misinformation, this includes things like fake news and stuff. Oh, thank you. Fake news, like, just like pseudoscience. And so on. So this includes things like, let's say, the idea that like crystals or something can like solve problems and like have an effect on health or something. That would be misinformation, but it wouldn't be a conspiracy theory because it is not positing a conspiracy. You could also have a conspiracy theory about it, though, that's saying, like, the government is hiding, or pharmaceutical companies are hiding the effectiveness of crystals for health and mental well-being because they want to make more money with their treatments. And that would be a conspiracy theory. But the interesting thing is, not all misinformation, so not all fake things, not all untrue things are conspiracy theories. It has to specifically say that there is a conspiracy to be a conspiracy theory. So like just saying that like the earth is flat, that is not a conspiracy theory in and of itself. Just saying the earth is hollow is not a conspiracy theory. Saying that the sun orbits the earth is not a conspiracy theory in and of itself. That's just plain misinformation. A conspiracy theory has to posit a conspiracy. It has to say there is a group of people who are actively doing this thing for their own benefit at the expense of other people. So like, again, like saying that aliens are real is not a conspiracy theory. Saying that, you know, like extraterrestrials have visited Earth and invaded Earth and abduct human beings is not a conspiracy theory. Like, I don't know if it's probably misinformation. It is probably misinformation. But specifically saying that the government is aware that aliens exist, but is hiding that information from the public so they can exploit alien technology to like brainwash the public or whatever, or hide scientific innovation from the public for their own benefit, that at that point, that's where that becomes a conspiracy theory. Actually, at that point, I think the alien is very sad because the alien is also being exploited, right? So not all misinformation is a conspiracy theory. But there's also the interesting point. People often ask me the difference between fake news and conspiracy theories, and that difference is here. Because not only is it that not all misinformation is a conspiracy theory, it's also that not all conspiracy theories are misinformation. There is a small subset of conspiracy theories that later go on to become true conspiracies. Like the idea that, let's say, I mean, MK Ultra is the classic example. For a long time, or like Watergate, let's say Watergate, for a long time there was a theory that the Nixon campaign was actively trying to sabotage the disposition through like spying or something like that. I forget the exact details, but this was a conspiracy theory. So at that time, that was a conspiracy theory. But that conspiracy theory actually ended up being true. Definitive proof came out. They admitted to doing this, right? So at that point, that conspiracy theory ended up being true. And at the point where a conspiracy theory has been confirmed, it's no longer a theory, of course. Because it's been confirmed, it's just a fact. But the interesting thing is, there are probably a fair number of conspiracy theories out there. Like, it's probably not the majority of conspiracy theories. It's probably not even, like, it's probably not even, like, 80% of conspiracy theories. Most conspiracy theories, I would argue, are probably false. But there is a small subset of conspiracy theories that are just waiting, that are true. and will eventually be confirmed. Or maybe they'll never be, but they are true. And I think that's the main difference between things like misinformation and fake news and conspiracy theories. Misinformation and fake news are by definition false. They are always false. That is the whole point of it. Conspiracy theories, I would say the majority of them are false, but there are also probably a few conspiracy theories out there that are true, and that is the difference between... And that's the reason why conspiracy theories are not inherently fake news. Astro says, I suppose they were actually conspiracy theories. The theories were just true. Yeah. There are some conspiracy theories out there that are true. I would say the majority of conspiracy theories, and that's why I put the surface like this, I would say the majority of conspiracy theories would qualify as fake news or misinformation. But there probably is, and historically there has been a small subset of conspiracy theories that are actually true, which is why conspiracy theories are not inherently misinformation or fake news. So some conspiracy theories can have yeah. There are conspiracy theories that I personally believe a few conspiracy theories, and I would consider those conspiracy theories, it's not plausible deniability. Yeah. But, like, I personally believe a few conspiracy theories, and of course, because I believe them, I think that they fall in this specific area of this circle. That may not be the case, but I think there are some there's like a scale of plausibility with conspiracy theories. Some conspiracy theories are incredibly implausible. Like, the Earth is hollow and there are lizard people living in there, and the lizard people are wearing skin suits to infiltrate our society and take over and manipulate human beings. That's a conspiracy theory that I would consider highly implausible. Like, it goes against almost all of the rules about many things that we know about how the world works. It seems incredibly implausible. Yeah, it's simply plausibility. Yeah, it's okay. Brain's rotten from where I totally get it. On the other hand, there are some conspiracy theories that I would consider highly plausible and consistent with how we know that the world works. Like, we already know that certain, like, oil companies, we know for a fact that some oil companies intentionally suppressed information coming from their own climate scientists to hide evidence of climate change related to oil. Like, we know this. This is a fact. Their own personal climate scientists that were working for their company. We know this. This is not a conspiracy theory, it's a fact. But I personally believe a conspiracy theory that oil companies have also intentionally been suppressing information from unaffiliated climate scientists. That is highly consistent with a lot of things that we know have actually happened. But to my knowledge, there is not, like, official confirmation that that's true, meaning that that is a conspiracy theory. Do I believe it's true? Absolutely. Is there confirmation? Not that I'm aware of. And because I am not aware that there's confirmation of this, even though I believe it's true, I would classify that as a conspiracy theory, even though to me it seems incredibly plausible. Right? I noticed the little white arrow in the conspiracy theories blue circle, and it makes me so happy. Thank you. These are high plausibility conspiracy theories. And this is something that's, like, recently getting accounted for in the literature on conspiracy theories, because, like, some conspiracy theories are incredibly plausible. Like, I don't know how I want to speak about the plausibility on this, because I don't have any particular belief about, like, the whole Epstein stuff. I don't have a particular belief about what happened to Jeffrey Epstein. I just think I personally do not have enough information about that. But there are a lot of conspiracy theories around Epstein's death. And I think a lot of people would consider them very plausible, right? And I think there seems to be a lot of belief around that. I've talked to a lot of people who take it for granted that some of these conspiracy theories are just true. And these are people that I would consider fairly rational people. Or, like, fairly ordinary people, you know? And then, of course, yeah. So I think this is a thing that we really need to take into account when we are talking about conspiracy theories. Because when people use the word conspiracy theory, I feel like they usually mean the conspiracy theories that are incredibly implausible, like the ones down here. And a lot of the research on conspiracy theories in academia has been done on like the more plausible theories that actually fit with our understanding of science in the world. And of course, some of them are still pretty implausible. Others are very plausible, but you know, I've been known to believe conspiracies. Yeah, my personal pet theory, and I believe that this is supported by data, though certainly not confirmed by data, because there's no way to confirm it, but like my personal pet belief, based on a lot of the studies that I've read and a lot of the people that I've talked to, is that every single living human being believes at least one or two conspiracy theories. But they don't realize it because the lay perception of conspiracy theories, well, first of all, they believe they're true, and the lay perception of conspiracy theories is that they're inherently false. And also because the lay perception of conspiracy theories is that they are inherently illogical and completely implausible. So I think I know conspiracy belief is incredibly widespread, way more widespread than most people think. I believe that everybody believes at least one. I just think that it's not common knowledge because there's this perception that conspiracy theories are all incredibly implausible and inherently false and irrational. And therefore, if I believe something's true, it cannot be a conspiracy theory, if that makes sense. I guess you would have to have believed that no one has ever lied to you in order to not believe any conspiracy theories. I think a lie and a conspiracy are a bit, like, a conspiracy is a bit it's more specific than a lie, but I get what you mean. My personal conspiracy theory is that all billionaires are evil and have ill intent regardless of the words they say. I'm not sure if that's a conspiracy yet, because it's not saying that there is a conspiracy, but you're getting there. I know that probably counts as a conspiracy theory, but I also know I believe it. I wouldn't say it counts specifically, because it's not positing a conspiracy. Like, if you went a step further and said all billionaires are evil and are collaborating to keep the working class from increasing their station in life. If you want that extra level to say that that at least some billionaires are working together to do something bad at the expense of other people, then it would become a conspiracy theory. But like it's close to one, but it doesn't quite have the conspiracy aspect in there. Yeah. Mm. I feel like that's a thing that a lot of people miss about the conspiracy theory thing, because, like, we conflate, and that's why this whole diagram, I think, is necessary, because we can tend to conflate this idea of misinformation or, like, extreme beliefs with conspiracy theories, when conspiracy theories are actually a lot more specific than that. That's why I have the conspiracy theory circle so much smaller than the misinformation circle, because conspiracy theories are highly specific in that they require you to have a theory that is an unconfirmed, like an idea that has not been confirmed, that posits a conspiracy. The conspiracy bit is the tricky bit, I think. It has to be an unconfirmed idea that posits that there is a conspiracy, that people are conspiring to do something. I should get back to work on editing these slides. Oh man, where am I? What's happening? Oh right, I need to be here. Here's the one that I need to be. That was a very, very fun digression. I thoroughly enjoyed that, but I should get back to these slides. But I'm happy to talk about conspiracy theories anytime. Anytime. I love talking about that because, again, that's what I did my PhD in. My PhD in was the psychology of conspiracy theories. So, like, that is a topic that I can talk about for extended periods, for hours and hours and hours, and I will never shut up. Ever. Oh man, it is hot. My cat is right there. Little Soma is flying right in the path of the air conditioning. And I have foolishly set up my PC such that it is out of the path of the air conditioning. And I am suffering just a little bit. Just a little bit. Maybe if I take off... No, wait. Maybe if I get rid of my feathers, maybe I'll feel a bit better. Maybe this will help you cool down. Get some liquid. I have some liquid. I have some liquid. Here. Watch me drink. Watch me drink my liquid. It's just not cold anymore. Those poor social psych students in their half-completed slide. It's completed. It's just I want to make it better. I've had these slides. I've used these slides for like probably 3 or 4 semesters now, and they're complete. I just want to make them better. I want to make them nicer. So, like, it's not the end of the world if I don't finish updating these slides, because they are a complete course. I have the complete course all done. I just want to improve it, you know? And I would very much love to improve it, but that's only 2 years. Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, the thing is they're non-consecutive, you know? The semesters, I don't teach this class every semester. Right, we're talking about we're on slide 4 of 39. And we have been going for an hour and 15 minutes. Okay. Okay. Self-schemas. Now we're ready. Yeah, let's do this. Okay. Beliefs that people hold about themselves that guide the processing of self-relevant information. I just have to lock in, right? That's less than 2 years of use, not that you shouldn't improve them all. Yeah, I want to improve them because, well, it has been less than 2 years of use total. It has been more than 2 years since I last updated these slides, and, you know, I want to update the information, make sure that it's accurate, make sure that I have more recent examples and stuff like that. I try and update these slides every 2 years, and they're due for that update now, so. Self-schemas are beliefs that people hold about themselves. I might change that to that we have about ourselves that guide the processing of self-relevant information. That feels a bit technical, but like I can elaborate. I can't think of a better way to phrase it off the top of my head, and like I can elaborate on that when necessary, right? Like slides are a supplement. They aren't the only thing. Hoo boy, I have an interesting self-schema. Oh man, me too. I mean, we all have interesting self-schemas, right? But like when I say it guides the processing of self-relevant information, what I mean is like, let's say I am feeling tired after a long day of socializing. If I conceptualize myself as an introvert, that would mean I interpret my exhaustion as being tired from all the socializing. If I conceptualize of myself as an extrovert, if that's part of my self-schema, I will not attribute my exhaustion to the socializing. I'll probably attribute my exhaustion to something else, like say how much walking I did, you know? That's what it means when I say I'm not responding to you at this point, Maury, by the way. I'm just trying to elaborate on what that statement means. Sorry. But yeah, at that point, I'm just saying, like, this is what this means. Like, my beliefs about myself guide how I interpret events around myself, how I interpret what I'm feeling, how I interpret what I'm experiencing. Like, if I think I'm a competitive person and I get frustrated when I lose a race, I might interpret that as frustration because other people won when I did not. But if I don't see myself as a competitive person and I lose a race, I might interpret that as, say, I'm frustrated that my training I didn't live up to my own expectations, as opposed to I didn't do well relative to others or things like that. Would this also include people believing things like astrology, like that external locus of control? Yeah, maybe. Well, no, not really. That wouldn't fit into a self-schema because belief in astrology is not a belief about the self. But locus of control might. So, like, astrology itself, that belief would not fit into self-schema, probably. But belief about how much control you have over your own life would. So I guess kind of indirectly, astrology might have to do with self-schema through locus of control. Does that make sense? Like, there's a lot of things that could give you an internal versus external locus of control. A locus of control, by the way, is like where you think, how much control you think you have over events in your life. If you have an internal locus of control, you believe that the events in your life are like, you have a lot of control over your life. Like, the events of a day, I have the power to make this a good day versus a bad day. Whereas if you have an external locus control, you feel like you don't really have a lot of control over your life. Whether you have a good or a bad day is out of your hands. So in that extent, I could see believing in astrology being kind of a supplement to that. Like, if I have an external locus of control, I could have a lot of explanations for why I don't have control over my life. And it's a chicken or the egg question of whether the belief in astrology gives you an external locus of control, or having an external locus of control has you seek out things like astrology or like religion or whatever it is. But I logically have an internal locus of control, but my darn emotions say otherwise. I get that. I get that. It is tricky, and like, it's like, that's the thing. I feel like we treat a lot of these things like aspects of the self, and this is one of the problems that I have with more traditional versions of personality psychology. Or not traditional, I should say like lay perception of personality psychology. Like, things like the MBTI. Things like the MBTI or like horoscope, or your astrological sign or whatever. My problem with that is it treats personality and like the self as categories. You're either an introvert or an extrovert. You either have an internal locus of control or an external locus of control. And that's not really how people work. You know, that's not usually. Not only are you somewhere in the middle of those two extremes, like, you're not an introvert or an extrovert. It's more likely that you tend to lean more introverted or lean more extroverted, and also that can depend on the situation. Like, I tend to be very extroverted when, say, I'm at an anime convention. Being at an anime convention, interacting with other people gives me energy, but in many other situations, I'm very introverted, where interacting with, like, if I'm at a party, interacting with people really drains my energy. A lot of these so-called aspects of our personality are, you're not either or. You're not like, what is it, like judging versus sensing or something in like the MBTI? Like, you're not one or the other. You're somewhere in the middle, and where you are in the middle will vary based on the situation. You know, like, it's complicated. Logically, I just need to keep moving and get this done. Emotionally, I'm doomed because every time I feel like I do... Yeah, I totally get that. I completely understand. And yeah, pop psychology is kind of intuiting versus sensing. Yeah, usually, like, even if that were a dichotomy, which I don't think that is a dichotomy. I don't think those are the opposite ends of the same spectrum. But even if they were, you're not one or the other. You're somewhere in the middle of the two, probably. And where you are in the middle of the two depends a lot on contextual factors, I would say. Hot take from someone with actually... I'm excited to see your take, Frost. I'm really curious. Let's see. Contains all self-knowledge and is connected to every other schema in your head. Me too. I can't wait to see it. Well, in the meantime, I'm moving on to slide 5. Functions of the self-concept. Managerial tells relationship to physical and social world, organizes behavior, plans for the future. I'll just elaborate that on that verbally. Organizational helps organize, interpret, and recall information about the self and the world. Emotional helps determine emotional responses. Yeah. Introvert and extroverted are poorly defined. Like, people have different levels of tolerance or social battery for those who differ from their internal world. Yes. I would also argue that introverted and extroverted, the psychological definition of introverted and extroverted is often quite different from the lay definition of introvert and extroversion. So, like, the psychological definition is whether it is draining to be around other people versus whether you regain energy from being around other people. It's not about how outgoing you are or how shy you are. It's more about how interacting with people impacts your energy levels, I would say. But I feel like if I'm talking about whether I'm introverted or extroverted, in a lay context, when I say I'm introverted, people get really surprised, because, like, depending on the context, when I'm interacting with people, I may behave in a very outgoing manner or a very energetic and sociable way. And so when I say I'm an introvert, which I consider myself a huge introvert, like I need a lot of social downtime. I need a lot of time by myself with zero interaction with other people. I need that like I need air. So I say I'm an introvert because I am, but a lot of people think that I'm not introverted because when I'm in certain situations, or like when I'm lecturing, I act incredibly energetic. Like people call me hyper. I think people might have even called me manic at some point when I'm lecturing. So they would probably consider me an extrovert when I am very towards the introvert part of the scale. It's just a matter of definitions. More like a sliding scale or color wheel. I totally agree, Maury. A lot of people who say they're introverted end up recovering their energy by interacting with, say, their wives or their 2 to 3 friends they eat steak with. Yeah, I also agree. Yeah, there's also like how many people you interact with or how close you are. For me, I could be interacting with my best friend in the entire world or like whoever it is, and that will still drain my energy. Like for me, I'm deeply introverted in that. It doesn't matter who I'm interacting with or how much I love spending time with them, it will still drain my energy. That will never recover my interacting with other people will never recover my energy ever, no matter my relation to that other person. I still need time completely alone. But I know for other people, it depends on their relationship with that person. You know, like for some people, interacting with strangers is incredibly draining, but interacting with close people like their wives and stuff is incredibly like recovering. For me, it's just very cut and dry. Interacting with other people is deeply draining to me, no matter who they are. For me, it also depends on the kind of meeting. Yeah. Certain socializing drains your battery faster. Absolutely. Talking with people verbally drains my battery so much faster than talking with people over text. Texting people drains my battery incredibly quickly relative to talking to people on Discord. Discord for me is like the ultimate way to interact with people with minimal battery drain. It still drains my battery, but like not nearly as much as any other form of communication. I love texting people, but no matter who the person is, I drain when I'm interacting with people or with my voice. Yes, absolutely. I think for me, verbal talking is the most draining. Texting is the second most draining. Discord is the least draining. And then, like, no drain would just be I'm not interacting with anyone at all. I've literally texted my girlfriend on Discord in the same room. That sounds like something I would do. Have I done that? Have I bring back forums, right? Maury, have I ever texted you when we were in the same room? Or like sent you a message on Discord when we were in the same room? I don't think I've done that. It's only a matter of time, Maury. Give it time. It's gonna happen. It's gonna Future plans found, yes. It's gonna happen sooner rather than later, I imagine. I've done that to other people. Yeah. Oh man, I'm certain that I've had entire conversations with people over Discord when we were sitting next to each other. Or like, maybe not Discord, but like text or something like that. Like, I am certain that has happened. I am very confident that has happened. I think it actually has happened with you, Maury, when we were, but that was specifically when we were talking to somebody else as well. Like when we were having like a conversation with a minimum of 3 people. And we were in the same room, but we were to some extent also communicating with each other over Discord because there were other people who were not in the room communicating over Discord as well. But like, it's just, you know. Discord is so much less draining. I do that even more often. Yeah, that's kind of like that's the more socially acceptable way to do it, I'd say, but I would absolutely do that. Have any of you been up to date with To Be Hero X, by the way? Texting my mom in the next room so as not to alert the other people in the house. Yeah, I've done stuff like that too. there's a character in To Be Hero X who, like, in a flashback, it shows him he built his entire relationship with the person that he married via text. They did their wedding vows and I do's via text. And part of it, I think, was that he was like, he and his wife, to an extent, for a long time, were very. They weren't nonverbal, but they were like, neither of them really spoke to anyone ever. So they just communicated over text, and that was just how they spoke. And, like, I think later in the series, he straight up becomes unable to speak at all. For To Be Hero X lore reasons, he becomes unable to speak. But, like, their whole relationship was just texting each other. They barely ever spoke. I think they did eventually. The wife did eventually start speaking to him, and that's kind of what destroyed their relationship. Not a big texter. I yap a lot to friends about details, but I often forget I'm even supposed to be sending it to people and not using. I get that. Trying to theorize before I get there. Yeah. You won't have seen almost any of this character until you get to his arc, so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not a big talker. Really, which might surprise you. If you're in, like, fire-sized discords, I talk a lot there, but, like, I'm not a big talker in real life. I don't talk a whole lot. Which is ironic, given my whole profession is lecturing, but, you know, like, I'm not good at talking to people. Anyway, let's see. I'm the yapper of the relationship. It's true. I feel it's yeah. Mori does the talking. I just sit there and listen mostly. All right, sense of self. Rather, I don't like showing videos in class. So let's see if I can find some pictures for this instead. So this is the whole red dot task, sense of self. I'm social and energetic. People don't know me make nicknames based on that. That is powerful. Why am I getting... I just want the... dot sense. Is it called the Rouge test? But in my social relationships, I respond on text, but I'm not a talker. Yeah, I'm just a quiet person. I'm a professional responder. Yeah, I get that. I think what I need to do is take the video that I originally had on this slide and then just take screenshots of it. No, we're not So I finished the TC as confirmed. Though I found it absurd that I was the biology department concierge for PR. They had me deal with news and guests. Oh, that's terrifying. I would get exhausted. I would get so tired so quickly. Oh man, I cannot interact with human beings. I get so nervous when I'm interacting with, like, PR things. Like, yeah. I have been interviewed. There's been a couple of occasions. You're so energetic and good at this. No, I'm literally not. I mean, if they're telling you you're good at it, you're probably good at it, but it's probably considerably more draining than you make it look like you're a natural. You know, like I get similar to that. Like it's one of those things where it's like they think you're doing great and they think you're looking natural. But really you're just exhausted. You know? Basically it came from acting classes and DMing TTRPGs. Yeah, I get that. I get that. I'm playing a character. Exactly. For me, it came from working retail. Working retail, you have to look all energetic and smiley and stuff, and you have to seem social. Yeah, retail. Retail is what trained me to be able to seem personable and energetic and talkative and happy. Before retail, I could not do it, but retail taught me how to pretend really hard. Retail is good for that. There are many reasons I think that people should be required to. I'm hoping to learn to pretend from streaming. Yeah, that could also be another way to do it. I could absolutely see that working. I could see streaming being part of it. I do think, though, retail is a highly effective way of doing it. I'm a firm believer of that. Everybody should work at least like 6 months to a year in a retail job. I firmly believe that that is an important thing to do. Yeah, but we were talking about how like introversion and extroversion. We were talking about like how it for some of us it's more draining to talk in person versus text, which means for documenting my embarrassment as a person who hasn't gotten any practice talking to people for 3 to 4 years. You got this, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. For me, like part of it also, my yapping is like my mother growing up, like I was super into anime, and my mother could not give less of a crap about anime and stuff. And like I've always had a lot of interests that aren't necessarily super popular or like super interesting to a lot of other people, and I want to yap about them. But of course, I've been kind of trained that you do not yap about stuff that other people are not interested in. So I've been holding in the yap for 30 years. I was holding in the yap for almost 30 years before I started streaming. And now, when I stream, I can yap and monologue about whatever I want. And the same is true for lecturing. Like, I've been trained to not talk about my interests at length for more than like a sentence or two for my entire life. And so between streaming and lecturing, the whole point is me monologuing. It's incredible. So this is like me like releasing pressure that's been building up for my entire life to date. Low-key falling down the rabbit hole of YouTube DMD DMing and role-playing advice helps a lot. Oh yeah, I could absolutely see how that would help a lot. Yeah, I found though that like when I like on the occasions where I have been like interviewed or something, I tend to overcorrect. This is a problem that I have. I overcorrect. Um, I get too excitable. I get too energetic and like, and it becomes kind of like I get really nervous and it just gets, I don't know. Like I've gone back and like rewatched an interview that I did, and I get like, oh my god, that is actually kind of painful to watch. Like, why am I like this? Who authorized someone to behave like this? I've been holding in my app for 25 plus years and I haven't had the moment of freedom. Yeah, yeah. Streaming is great for that. Like, if you are holding in the yap, streaming is a great way to unleash the yap. That's another problem I have, actually. Like, sorry. Ah, come on, I just want this screenshot. Like, I watched way too much anime growing up, and part of the way that I seem so enthusiastic is that I sort of subconsciously, like unintentionally started mirroring behaviors that are displayed in anime. So this is deeply embarrassing. Like, that means I act like a cartoon character in real life sometimes, especially when I'm like really nervous and out of my depth. I have like exaggerated mannerisms. It's so cringe. It's so cringe. And like, so like, there was a recorded interview that I did, and I rewatch it, and I'm like, oh my god, normal people don't act like that. Normal people do not gesture like that. Like, oh, it's painful. Oftentimes I feel like I have to manually emote to connect with people better. I've been doing it for so long, it's hard to express my own emotions. Yeah, I get that. A lot of social interaction, I feel like, is putting on some kind of face. Maybe I got used to the biology department interviews. They're trying to get new forensics departments, so we had so many interviews of people for positions for forensics, and forensics people are special. That's so interesting. I would have loved to see that. A lot of people do that, especially neurodivergent people. Yeah, I mean, everybody's putting on a face when they're interacting with people, and I know that can be a bit more extreme for neurodivergent people. Me, board expression, this is the best thing I've ever watched. Yeah. Also, I think it's a little cultural. Yes, yes, there is definitely, there are definitely cultural factors that go into how we emote, how much emotion we show, how we express emotion, and things like that, how we interact with other people. And part of my problem is that I am an American. I have lived in the US my entire life. I have gone overseas, but only rarely. Like, I think I've only been abroad 3 or 4 times in my entire life. And the problem is I picked up a lot of mannerisms from anime, which means I have a lot of, like, not only do I use Japanese specific mannerisms in some cases, which makes no freaking sense for somebody like me who grew up and has spent almost my entire life in America, minus like maybe 3 or 4 weeks of my 30 plus years. It's also not just Japanese adjacent mannerisms, it is exaggerated anime like Japanese mannerisms. It's so bad. It's so bad. I can't stop though. It's not something I'm doing consciously, and I'm so, and like people will point it out. They'll be like, "Oh, that's a cute habit that you have," and I'm like, "No, it's not cute. It's not cute. This is deeply embarrassing. I'm glad you think it's cute, but oh no, I'm cringing so hard at myself right now." Oh yes, I remember seeing Korean audiences and the cultural norms when it comes to shows. The quiet equals respect was jarring, not bad, but yeah, yeah, it's so interesting. It's so, stop, you're painting a picture I'm in and I don't like it. Too bad. Too bad. If I can at least share this cringe with one other person, I feel a little better about it. All right, that's better than the video, because this makes the point a lot more concisely than the video. Here is an elephant looking in a mirror, but we're not sure if it thinks it's another elephant or if it is we've got a picture of an elephant looking in a mirror, but we're not sure if it's seeing, if it knows that it's that itself in the mirror or if it thinks it's another elephant. So what people did was they painted, in this case, a white X on the elephant's face. The elephant looks in the mirror, notices the X, and touches the X, which indicates that it is aware that the X on the elephant's mirror is actually an X on its own head. So instead of touching the mirror, it touches its head, which indicates that it knows that that is it's in the mirror, indicating that the elephant has a sense of self. I need to get a picture of my cat in front of a mirror. I love my cat. My cat is so cute. I love it. Look, he's right behind me. Well, you can't see him. He's right behind me and he's being very cute. Enjoying the air conditioning. He can tell I'm talking about him. He's a good boy. But I don't think he has a sense of self. Because he thinks there's another cat in the mirror. He's gotten better about it, but like I have a floor-length mirror in my bedroom, and he had to be banned from my bedroom in the longest time because he would charge the mirror thinking it was another cat. He charged the mirror and ran into the mirror multiple times. That's right. I can find. Do you have any pictures of cats seeing printouts of themselves and reacting? I can probably find one. Yeah, to represent what my cat is like in the mirror. I need to find like a cat hissing at mirror. Oh, here we go. I found a good one. This is not my cat, but it's a similar deal. It's a cat getting really scared by the cat in the mirror. Which, to be fair, if you don't understand mirrors, they've gotta be pretty freaky, right? I mean, like, even human beings, when we know that, or like, living sentient beings, remember, I'm not human, I'm a cryptid. When we look at ourselves on film or something like that, or hear a recording of our own voice, it very much is unpleasant. And, like, imagine that if you don't understand what's happening, you know? Like, even if you do recognize that that's you in the recording or in the mirror, if you don't understand mirrors or recordings, that's got to be deeply uncomfortable. Or the ones where the owner wears a cat mask with ears and is talking to the cat, and the cat's not having it. These poor cats. These poor cats. They're suffering every day. Oh, the poor kitties. The poor kitties. They're suffering. They're so angry. This the evil cat in the mirror. Evil cat in the mirror. Okay. Alright, and then Red Dot study. This is a study from 1977, but it's like a really nice, clean study. The problem is, like, we used to get a lot more creative with methods in older studies, so they're a lot more fun to talk about than more recent studies. Now, 80% of my feed is probably cat videos. Good, as it should be. This is the final form. This is peak performance of a feed. There is that video of the cat reacting to Pet Shop's giant cat images on the front. I have not seen that, but that sounds interesting for sure. Implications. Social environment affects the development of the self. And without social environment, e.g., or i.e. E.g. is, for example, i.e. is in other words, I believe. I.e. Other beings of the same species to interact with the self may not exist. Yeah, this is a really fascinating study, by the way. This is part of the red dot study that I think people don't usually talk about. So you may be familiar with the idea of the red dot study, where like they put a dot or something on the face of a creature and then have it look in the mirror and see if it touches its own face to indicate it recognizes that's me in the mirror with something on my face, or if it touches the mirror to indicate it thinks there's something in there. Knowing nothing about funding about academia, I imagine getting funding must be playing into the creativity of more recent study. Or it could be. Actually, creativity in studies may hurt your chances at funding, because they want evidence that it's going to work. There's this really stupid thing with grants. I don't know if this is true in other fields, but in psychology, grants want evidence that they're not wasting their money. So before you do a study, or before you apply for a grant, yes, they have done that study with human babies. I have that in here. And human babies start to recognize themselves in the mirror, or like start to touch their own face instead of the mirror at around 18 to 24 months old, which is, we estimate that people start to gain a sense of self at around that age, because that's around the age when babies start passing the red dot task. Start recognizing that, oh, that's a dot on my face in the mirror, as opposed to that's another baby in the mirror. They've done it with other babies, or with human babies, absolutely. I forgot what I was talking about. Oh yeah, the aspect that we don't talk about in the red dot task is that, like, it's not just that they did this to see, like, with chimps. The initial red dot task was done with chimps in 1977. This was Gallup. Gallup did this in 1977. And not only were they checking, do chimps have a sense of self? So do they touch their own face if they have a dot on them, on their head? They also tested chimps raised in two different environments. They had a set of chimps that were, hey, Water Night, welcome! Yeah, it is pretty early. And we started even earlier than this. We're almost 2 hours in. We started around, like, 1 p.m. Yeah, because this is a co-working stream. This is, I don't know. Either way. Okay, so what they did was they did the thing, right? They not only did this, they raised chimps in two different environments. One was chimps who were raised around other chimps. So they were raised in a social environment among other creatures of the same species. And the other condition was these chimps were not raised around other chimps. They were the only chimp in their environment. And what they found was that chimps who were raised around other chimps passed the red dot task. Chimps who were not raised around other chimps did not. So the idea here is that we only develop a sense of self, we are an individual with a sense of who we are if we are raised around others of the same species. But if we are not, we don't necessarily develop that same sense of self. Having to prove a prior for exploring something funky creatively feels like a double-edged sword. Yes, okay, all right, that was the stupidness of grants. At least in psychology, a lot of the grants want prior evidence that what they are funding, and we got a solid 15 minutes of work done too, right? I will say, before this, I did go to a coffee shop, and I got a pretty solid chunk of work done before the stream, so this isn't totally awful. We're on slide 10 of 40, because I added a slide, so it's no longer out of 39, it's 10 of 40. But yeah, with grants, you have to show evidence that the question that you're testing with the grant money will probably bear fruit, which means you need prior evidence of an effect to get a grant to study that effect, which means that in practice, what I've heard, like, I don't typically apply for grants, but what I've heard from my colleagues who do apply for grants is that a lot of the time, you're applying for a grant claiming that you're studying one thing, when really you're applying for a grant to fund the next thing that you're going to study. You say that you're applying for the grant to study this one thing that you are showing evidence for, and then you use the money for the grant to study the next thing, so that you have evidence of the next thing to apply for a grant to fund the study of the thing after that. You're applying for grants to study things that you have already studied so that you have money to study the next new thing, and it is so stupid. Like, I get why. You don't want to throw, like, thousands or millions of dollars at a project that you don't think is going to work. I get why that happened, but it feels really stupid to me. You use stuff you've already done, and 80% of the grant is just more of what we did, and 20% is what you actually want to do. Exactly. Yeah, it's such a stupid... I completely understand how this happened and why this happened. I 100% understand. But when you try and talk about it, it's just stupid on the face of it, isn't it? Right? Like, it makes logical sense, but at the same time, it just feels really stupid. And yeah, because you don't want to, like, do fraud. You don't want to apply for a grant for one thing and actually use it for something else. So the grant is, like Ink said, like, a bunch of the grant is dedicated towards stuff that, towards, like, additional research on the thing that you've already found, like, replications of this effect and stuff like that. Or like extensions upon that effect. But then, like, another little bit of the grant is set aside for the exploration of the next thing that you want to research that you wouldn't be able to get funding for if you just applied for that on its own because you don't have prior evidence of it. It's such a stupid system. It just feels so weird. It's like, it's these weird little political games that you have to play, you know? Blah. Anyway, the self and culture. Oh, this is where we get into independent versus interdependent views of selves, which is a whole thing. Like, the whole, like, overlap, and I should put a note in here. I do say this verbally, but I also want to make sure it's on the slide, because, like, we often treat, like, collectivistic and individualistic cultures. Again, this is another thing, like, with personality traits, that we treat as if it's a binary. You're either one or the other, and that is not... Oh, excuse me. That is not what it is. This is a spectrum, not a binary. Most people and cultures are somewhere in the middle. That's the interesting thing about, like, interdependent and independent views of self. So the idea that an independent view of yourself, this is that you view yourself, like, if I try and talk about who I am, I'm going to talk about my own characteristics and stuff. Like, if I have an independent view of myself, I will say, I am an introvert. I am a lecturer. I am this. I am that. And if I have an interdependent view of self, I define myself through my relationships with other people. Like, I am an older sibling. I am a member of V Theorem. This and this and this. And, like, so the independent view of self is individual characteristics, defining myself through characteristics of myself as an individual. The interdependent view of self is defining myself through my relationships with others, I'm a member of my university's community and all that stuff. But most people are not only one or the other. The vast majority of people define themselves in both of these ways. And then also, it's context dependent. If, like, there's been some really fascinating research on people from, like, bicultural people, let's say, like, somebody who is, like, Asian American or Mexican American or something like that. Let's say they're a first generation immigrant or something like that. If they are in a context where, let's say they come from a collectivistic culture, well, I don't want to say come from. Let's say their family, their parents immigrated from a country that tends to lean more collectivistic and tends to have a more interdependent view of themselves. But now they're living in America, which tends to have a more independent view of self and tends to be more individualistic. When they're around their American friends, they will tend to express a more independent view of self. But when they're with their family, who came from this more collectivistic, interdependent culture, they will tend to express a more interdependent view of self. So not only is this a spectrum where you're probably somewhere in the middle, it can depend on the context you're in as well. But we talked about it way too much like it's a binary. And like also like within countries, like a lot of people talk about like East Asian countries are collectivistic and interdependent, whereas Western European countries are more independent and have an independent view of self. That's not the case. Like within the same country, you will have some regions that tend to be more collectivistic and some regions that tend to be more like individualistic, and then the people within those regions will have varying levels of individualism and collectivism, and then within the same person, depending on the context that they're in, they will have varying levels of individualism and collectivism, and like it's way too oversimplified. It's way too oversimplified in the way that we usually talk about it. It's like I'm getting so frustrated about it, I'm getting literally lightheaded and dizzy. Or maybe I'm just dehydrated. I've been drinking this whole time. I've been drinking fluids this whole time. Maybe I need to get another. I just finished the thing that I was drinking. Maybe I need to get myself another drink. Because it is really hot. The summer's not to be underestimated. Okay. Anyway, I'm just ranting now about like the way that we tend to, like, what's the word? We tend to treat things as if they're categories. Make sure it's not a diet soda. Why not? No, I just drank a diet soda, so the next thing that I'm gonna get is some water. Also a salty snack to keep hydration in. Okay. Okay, Dad. Okay, Dad. I'll get myself a water and a salty snack. I don't have any good salty snacks right now. I plan to go to the grocery later. But I'll at least get some water and clean your room. My room is clean. Excuse you. Excuse you, my room is clean. Fight me. Okay. 1 second, I'm gonna get some water. I'm gonna get some water so I don't pass out from getting frustrated about people dichotomizing or trichotomizing or whatever binary or continuous variables. Because that is one of my pet peeves, when people take something that is a spectrum and split it into categories. It's a spectrum. I get it's simpler to put it into categories, and it's easier to think about that way, and frankly, the human brain is better at dealing with categories than it is spectrums. But, nah! Whoa. I don't know what that was. Okay, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get some water. I'm gonna go get some water. Maybe I should straight up take myself off the screen to indicate that I'm not. I'm gonna go get some water, BRB. I got some water. Okay, let's do this. We're gonna lock in. Maybe for the next stream I need to use that. Can I just lock in? thumbnail again to indicate that I really need to just focus, because I'm not doing a great job of that. Water. I love water. What's better than a nice cold water on a hot day? There is not much more. Like if you've been out walking in the heat for a while and then you come home and you just pour yourself a nice cold water. Imagine the slides are a live 2D model, right? That's what I need to lock in, frankly. Oh, this is embarrassing. It's not embarrassing. I'm more powerful than you can possibly imagine. You should see me locking in on a live 2D model. Oh, I am so strong. Right. Implications of self-control. Self-control. I should define self-control. Why don't I define self-control? Oh, I do. I do, but I don't really define it in a good way. So I'm going to add a bullet point here. Self-control. How you see yourself. How you perceive yourself. I'm going to add a bullet point so that that's, like, clear what exactly self-control is. Or maybe how you see yourself is fine. See can be used, I think, in this context as a synonym for perceive. That is a little less pretentious. I think they know what I mean without using a more complicated word. The self's connected to everything else. Self-control has big implications, including... Yeah, I don't know. Okay, that's good. That's good. We're good. Sources of self-knowledge. How do we learn about ourselves? How do we learn about who we are? All right. Introspection, self-perception, and social comparison. A lot of people have struggles with telling these apart. So maybe, you know what? I should make a table that compares and contrasts these things. I think that would be really good, because one of the things that my students tend to struggle with is telling the difference between introspection and self-perception. That's the thing that they struggle with a lot. So I should make a table that clearly lays out the differences between these things. Because right now I have a slide for each, but that doesn't make the compare and contrast quite as easy. Does that make sense? I think this is a good idea. I think this is a good way to improve this lecture and make it clearer for my students. And that's the goal of this, to make this a better lecture for my students. I think it's already pretty good. Like, I haven't gotten any complaints about it. Students already say my lectures are pretty good, but they can always be better, you know? Always room for improvement. So introspection is you're thinking about yourself, you're looking within. It's a very intuitive thing. So it's like, I know that I'm introverted. I don't need to, like, think about that and ask myself, am I introverted? I'm just like, oh yeah, that's the thing that I am. Self-perception is when it's not clear. It's not, like, somebody asks you a question you aren't sure about. And then social comparison, you compare yourself to others. So, sources, let's call this sources of self-knowledge. And then we're gonna make a table, and I need 4 rows, and let's say 2 columns. Hi, Mr. Kibble. Hello, Soma. You're a good boy, aren't you? He's a good kitty. He's a good kitty. Okay, locking in. Oh wait, no, I wanted it 3 columns to... That's fine. We can... That's an easy fix. Let's insert a column. Introspection. Or wait, no, we want 4 columns. It's fine. Everything's under control. I am so good at this. I am so strong. Self-perception and social comparison. Okay. Ah! No, that's too much. Okay. Alright, And then let's call this effort. So these are all ways of knowing about yourself. Introspection is low effort. It's almost automatic. Self-perception is higher effort. You have to active thought. Social comparison, moderate effort. The main difference between introspection and self-perception is how you gain self-knowledge. Introspection is you just kind of know it. You already know this about yourself. Self-perception is you have to ask yourself questions to know it. Let's get rid of an extra row. And like I can elaborate this on this stuff verbally because I feel like it's not super clear. And then social comparison, you compare yourself to your own characteristics to others' characteristics. Or you have to ask yourself questions and observe your own behavior. There we go. I think that explains it. So like for introspection, you don't really need to like think about it. You already know this about yourself. Like, are you like that kind of thing? Self-perception, it's something that it's like a more complicated question. I want to find an example of something that people would have to do self-perception for if I can. So like is it related to differences between controlled and automatic processes? I don't think it's inherently related to that, but if I had to guess, I'd say introspection is probably a more automatic process, whereas self-perception probably is a more controlled process. Like introspection is something that feels sort of obvious about yourself. Maybe I should add that. Feels obvious. Not obvious. So yeah, so like introspection is like it's just something introspection is generally a lot more manual, though it can be prompted automatically, such as a moment of clarity. I think not necessarily. Introspection is less manual than self-perception. So introspection is just, you're kind of asking yourself, like, let's say I ask you, are you a conscientious person? Or like, are you, no, what's something that people tend to know about themselves? Like, I don't want to keep using the example of introvert and extrovert, but like, let's say I ask you, I ask you, are you a gamer? Or maybe not that. I ask you, do you play video games? You can probably give me an answer pretty quick, right? Like if I ask you, do you play video games? That's probably more likely to inspire something like introspection. Where you can probably give me a yes or no. Are you a gamer, TM, right? So like if I ask you like, do you play video games? You can probably give me a pretty quick answer. Maybe I'll use this as my example. So introspection, do you play video games? You can probably answer that fairly quickly. That's probably something that, you know, you kind of have stored in your head already, whether you play video games or not. For self-perception, I might ask, self-perception might be more like, what video game do you play the most? And if I ask you what video game you play the most, like for some people that might be obvious. Like if you only play one or two games, you might be able to answer that pretty quickly. But let's say if you play a wide variety of games, you might have to think, okay, well, which, or maybe what's your favorite video game? What your favorite video game? And for that one, or let's, what game do you spend the most time playing? Or maybe what game would you recommend? Or I don't know. It's hard to come up with good questions for this because different people have different things. But like, if I ask you what game do you spend the most time playing for self-perception, or maybe what is your favorite video game? Let's just go with that. What is your favorite video game? For that one, you might have to engage in more self-perception. So introspection would be like, do you play video games? That's probably something you can answer yes or no. No, I don't play video games, or yes, I do play video games. If I ask you, though, what is your favorite video game, you might have to think a bit more. You might have to think, well, let's see. Which game do I feel happiest while playing? This one. Well, which game have I spent the most time playing? Oh, well, it's this other game. Well, which game would I recommend the most? I've recommended this game more than I recommend other games. So this is like something where I'm observing my own behavior to get the answer, right? Like with introspection, I probably already have the answer stored somewhere in my head, or it's something I don't need to think about too much. I just go through the stored information in my head with introspection, and I pull out this piece of information. Yes, I play video games. Or no, I don't play video games. That's just something that's already stored in my head. For self-perception, it's not information that I already have stored. Feels, I'm gonna update my slides actually for this. Already stored in your head. Not obvious. Maybe not something you already know. Or not something you have readily stored in your head. So like, if you ask me my favorite video game, and I've never been asked this question before, I'm gonna have to think about it. You know, like I'm gonna have to look like, well, what makes a video game my favorite video game? Is it the one that I've played the most? Well, which game have I played the most? Like, how does this game make me feel? I have to observe my own behavior, my own thoughts, my own feelings before I can come to an answer. That is self-perception. Or like, if somebody asks me, like, are you an introvert and extrovert? Some people might already have a ready answer for that. Like, I'm introverted or I'm extroverted. For other people, that might be like, oh, or no, maybe outgoing. I zoned out for a bit. Oh, that's what I was trying to allude to. Yeah. Yeah, like, are you outgoing or are you shy? Some people might already know that. Like, I only have to engage in extroversion to say, or in introspection to say I'm shy. But other people might not readily know. They might have to be like, yeah, exactly. Introspection is more automatic. Self-perception is more manual. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and then social comparison is, are you good at video games? Or are you good at video games? Which requires you to compare yourself to other people. Like, I'm good at video games if I think I'm better than other people. I'm bad at video games if I think I'm worse than other people. Interesting. I always figured introspection was the one that actually requires you to think into it. It does sound like that, right? But from a psychological viewpoint, at least in terms of getting self-knowledge, introspection's a lower effort thing. It only requires you to think about it. And maybe thinking about it does take some time, but you can think about it and come to a conclusion without any observation or data. Self-perception is not the... Yeah. It is kind of counterintuitive, right? And I think this is why my students tend to struggle with this. But self-perception is literally you're observing yourself as if you were observing somebody else. Like, if I asked you, are you outgoing? And you have to engage in self-perception. You're essentially observing your own behaviors as if you were observing a friend. It's kind of the equivalent of asking, is your friend outgoing? And then you think, oh, well, my friend acted this way, or my friend acted that way, and therefore I think they are outgoing, or they aren't outgoing. It's like that, but you're doing it to yourself. BRB? Okay. Good luck. Defeat the opponent, or whatever. Accomplish the thing. Mm-hmm. So social comparison. Right now I have a video in here, but I don't like videos. Let's see. So like social comparison in social media is like it's like, you know, I feel like this is too specific to like YouTubers. I wouldn't be able to use it to get to the rest of my class, but like saying like, you know, looking like pictures of two YouTubers' social blades, you know, like, or like comparing my subscriber count to Phi's subscriber count. Like, that would be social comparison. Hey, Phi! Speak of the devil and you're not a devil. Speak of the cell and you'll social comparison, like when I see other Labubu's. Like, let's say you're comparing yourself on how rare your Labubu is. That might be, or like whether you're a true Labubu collector, you might compare how many Labubus you have to how many Labubus your friend has, right? And that would be social comparison to determine whether you are a true Labubu collector. That would be social comparison. Or like social comparison, like, am I doing well on YouTube? If I compare myself to like, I don't know, like H-Bomber guy or whatever, I am not doing well on YouTube. But if I compare myself to like my mom, who has an account but has never uploaded a video, I am smashing it. I am killing it on YouTube. Social comparison. Oh, the young people, the kids use Instagram, right? The kids are using Instagram. The kids are using Instagram. That's what the kids are using. Probably. Astral, you are the kids. I know you're not a kid, Astral, but I think you're roughly the same age as a lot of my students. So I'm just gonna say the kids and lump you. My students are not children either. My students are adults. They are young adults. But the kids are I was never a social media guy, to be honest. Fair. That's fair. Welcome, Phi. I hope that you had safe travels. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope that you're getting enough rest. Oh yeah, here, my favorite example of social comparison that I can use in my class. I think this is a great example. And I always get really funny reactions from my students when I ask this question to demonstrate social comparison, is I ask my students, are you tall? So I start out with, are you tall? And then my students will say yes or no. And then I ask them, how do you know that you're tall? Or how do you know that you're not tall? And that's where they demonstrate social comparison. Like, sometimes they say something really funny. Like, I think my favorite answer to this question, when I ask, like, are you tall? How do you know? Is one of my students answered with, well, my height begins with a 6. And that just, that killed me. That cracked me up so hard. But usually they say, well, I can see above everybody's heads. Or, well, or I have to, you know, like, I can see over everybody's heads in this room right now. Or, like, when I go to a concert, I can't see the stage because everybody around me is taller than me. The whole point of the question, like, are you tall, is that it encourages social comparison. You determine whether you are tall based on whether you're tall relative to whether you're taller than the people around you or shorter than the people around you, you know? So, like, that's my in-class demonstration of social comparison. Are you tall? How do you know that you're tall? And of course, that's all about the reference group. Like, if I ask you if you're tall and you're surrounded by people who are 6 foot plus, you might say, no, I'm short. But if I say, are you tall? And I surround you by people who are like 5 foot or shorter, you might say, yeah, I'm tall. Yeah, like it's all about the reference group. That's the weird thing about social comparison. Like, which brings us to the concept of upward and downward comparison and like who we compare ourselves to and stuff like that, which is a whole other can of worms. We're over halfway through, by the way. We're over halfway through the PowerPoint. Look at us go! We're making progress. Can you hear my voice giving out on me? Woo! Only 2+ hours. I think we did some pretty interesting stuff in those 2+ hours, though, even if they weren't terribly productive 2 hours, right? We did some cool stuff in those 2 hours. You know what's been bugging me? I need to put the chat closer to my webcam because I'm always looking off to the side to read the chat, I don't know, it's annoying to me. Very, very good yap. Yeah, right? I'm good at yapping. I am yapping harder than anyone has ever yapped in their life. That's a lie. Okay. Basics of social comparison. When do you social compare? Who do you do it with? When do you social... when do you do it? Who do you do it to? When do you do social comparison? Who do you compare yourself to? And which direction do you compare yourself in? Okay, yeah, so social comparison, we engage in social comparison when it's relevant to our self-concept, because it's how we learn about ourselves, right? So we do social comparison to determine, like, say, how good we are at a thing, or how well we're performing, or, like, how tall we are, or how introverted or extroverted we are, or how nice we are. How nice I am is not just an objective, like, thing that's floating out in the void, it's relative to how nice the people around me are. Am I nice compared to the average person? You know, it's like, when I ask you, like, how tall are you, or how much do you know about, like, psychology, or what it is, you're not just saying, like, how much do I know about psychology in the void. You're not saying, well, I know 20 facts or whatever. You're probably saying, well, I know more about psychology than the average person, so I know a fair amount about psychology. A lot of the time when you're trying to judge these things, you're not judging it on some sort of objective scale. You're judging yourself relative to the people around you. So you engage in social comparison when you're trying to learn something about yourself. Yeah. Okay, I think that's good. When do you compare, who do you compare yourself to? Typically, you're comparing to yourself to the similar people or / the people around you. So I might say I know a lot about psychology if I am standing, like, or I might say I know a lot about video games if I'm standing in a group of, like, if I'm spending time with my family. If I'm spending time with my family, I play way more video games than anyone else in my family, so I'd say I know a lot about video games. But, like, if I am at, like, a gaming convention or something, and you ask me, do you know about video games? I would say I know almost nothing about video games, because relative to most, like, people who consider themselves gamers, I play, like, 5 video games, you know? That's not a whole lot. So who do you compare yourself to? You compare yourself either to people who you perceive as similar to you in most metrics, or just, like, the people who are immediately around you, whether that's they're physically around you or, like, you know, socially around you. So, like, the people in the room with me, or, like, the people who are in the same Discord server as me. Yeah. And which direction do you compare yourself in? It depends on what you're trying to do. If I'm, upward social comparison is comparing yourself to people who are better than you. Downward social comparison is comparing to yourself to people who are worse than you. And typically, if you're trying to get an objective view of your skill or your level of competence, you compare yourself to people who are similar to you. But let's say if I'm trying to get better, like if I'm trying to improve my art or my live 2D rigging, I'm probably going to engage in upward social comparison. I'm going to compare my current level of skill to people who are better than me if I'm trying to improve. On the other hand, if I'm feeling really down about myself, let's say I did really, like, I think I did really bad on a test or something like that, I'm probably going to try and make myself feel better by engaging in downward social comparison. Yeah, I got like an 80 on that test, but these other people got a 70 on the test. So honestly, I'm doing pretty well. So like depending, the direction you compare yourself in depends on what you're trying to achieve. And depends on exactly what you're talking about. Let's see. Upward, more likely for things we want to improve at. I find that it's important for people to learn to do all three. Yes, yes. I think, and everybody to an extent uses all three types of social comparison. We compare ourselves, it depends on what we're trying to do. Depends on what we're trying to accomplish. Labubu discourse stream. Sorry, I just looked over at Discord. I feel that the fitness is where social comparison muddles reality. Average fitness and healthy fitness is so this is so true. I think in any field, social comparison muddies reality, because also social comparison is an inherently relative thing. Like, how you come out in a social comparison, whether it, like, you come out looking good or bad, is entirely dependent on who you're comparing yourself to, right? Which makes it messy. Like, me judging my art skill is going to give me a totally different result whether I'm comparing myself to, say, professional artists versus whether I'm comparing myself to, say, toddlers, you know? Like, depending on who I compare myself to, I'm going to get completely different results. Being bad at downward social comparisons where people generate corrupted fake version of humility where they call themselves terrible at it. Yeah, like, it's bad to be... It can have negative consequences to be bad at any type of social comparison. True humility is accurate self-perception, but it's often lost in South Asian culture. I'm not too familiar with South Asian culture, but there is some interesting things in how we, like, present ourselves. You can draw circles around toddlers. They don't move too quick. It's so true. It's so true. I was so good at... I could draw a circle around a toddler. I don't know if I can win against a toddler. I can win against a toddler in a race. I don't know if I could win against a, like, 5th grader in a race, though. Probably I'd lose. I'm sorry. Fine, I'm gonna pop in your Discord real quick, because I need a Labubu Discord stream from you. 5th graders are pretty fast, and I've never been quick. Calling yourself bad is fine if you're finishing the thought with, I'm bad compared to who I want to be or professional artist. Yeah, it's so easy to get stuck in, like... And, like, it's really... I think the main problem is when you don't realize where your comparison group stands relative to the average person. It's really easy to get lost in that, right? Like... I follow a lot of really talented artists, or I don't want to say I hate describing artists as talented because that diminishes how much work they put into getting how good they are, you know. But like Toxo and I have been waxing poetic about Labubus for a disturbing amount of our honeymoon. I'm so happy. Maury and I have been talking about Labubus way too much. Ever since that trip we took the other weekend, we have been talking about Labubus way too much. It's not healthy. Ever since I got back from the trip, I have not seen a single Labubu in the wild, which is crazy to me. Because while we were on that trip, there were Labubus everywhere. But ever since I got back home, I have not seen a single Labubu in the wild. One of my friends who knows the lore and was explaining it to me. They only have a bootleg, though. That's okay. That's okay. I want to know more about Labubu lore. I do. I wonder if there's any good, like, video essays on Labubu lore I can put on while I draw this afternoon. Or, like, while I play Minecraft or something. Anyway. Yeah, the problem with social comparison is it's very... A lot of times I think people don't consider their comparison group. Skilled is a better word than talented, if you don't like that. Yeah, I think skilled is a better word for describing the type of artist. I follow some incredibly skilled artists, so I tend to think that I honestly would describe myself as mediocre at best when it comes to art because I follow a lot of highly skilled artists, right? So most of the art that I see people sharing is like crazy polished, beautiful art from people who have been perfecting their craft for decades, you know? So I consider myself like, because that is what I surround myself with, I'm comparing my art to them because that's the art that I see, you know? So I consider myself pretty mediocre at art a lot of the time. If I were to self-describe how I am at art, I would say that because that is the comparison group I have, because that is what I surround myself with, and that seems so-called normal to me, you know? And it's very easy to lose track of, is your comparison group actually representing the average person? Does that make sense? I feel like it's really easy to lose track of that. Because most people, like, there is no such thing as the average person, but the makeup of the group that people spend time around, especially if they really care about something, like, I'm very passionate about art, so I follow a lot of artists. I follow a lot of other people who are very passionate about art, so that means that the people that I see on a daily basis doing art are not representative of the average person when it comes to art. I'm mediocre at best within the pool of artists that I interact with is a pretty valid thought, right? I think that's a very valid thought. There must be a statistically most average person. I feel like if you are the statistically most average person, that in a way makes you incredibly unusual. So by being the statistically most average person, you are no longer average because you are highly unusual for being the most average person. Every isekai protagonist. You're not wrong. Some versions of positivity often says never call yourself bad, but I find it for self-perception. Negative words are fine if they're being said honestly without judgment or distaste. It's tricky. It's very tricky. Because it's very... I go into this a bit in my lectures, and like, it's to some extent this is out of my area of expertise, because this tends to lean to more clinical, but it's good for your mental health to have an unrealistically positive view of yourself. Like, deluding yourself into thinking that you are a better person than you actually are tends to be good for your mental health, actually. So being overly positive can actually be beneficial to your mental health and can be adaptive. It's a whole thing. Like, something being a good thing is relative to what you are evaluating something on, you know? Like, my version of positivity is if you're going to call yourself bad at X, say it with the same heart as if you're sending your 5-year-old child to a competition. Like, sure, the child is bad, but they're wonderful with or without the bad art skills, and they'll get better. Yeah, I think framing yourself, I don't like using the word I'm bad at something, though I do that a lot. I have a big problem with negative self-talk. But I think it's better to frame it as, like, this is not something that I have specialized. This is not my strong point, I think, is a good way of framing it. Or like, maybe, I can't come up with a good word of it, but like, this is not something that I've dedicated my time to. This is not my area of specialization. Because I think that implies that, like, it could be. If I just put in the effort, I could probably get good at that. I think it more inspires a bit of a growth mindset, you know? Like, there are some things where putting in effort will never be enough to be the best, because some things at a point are, I do not have a proficiency bonus in blank. Yeah, like, if you put in the effort, you put in the time, you invested the skill points, you could gain a high skill level in that area, but you have not done so. And I think that's the good way to think about it. Fair, hee. For me personally, I like to disarm the word and always append a hopeful sentence to it to further disarm it. I like that. I think it's very important, like, when you say something, like, when you say, I'm not good at something, or, like, whatever it is, I think it's very important to acknowledge that that's not a fixed state. You know? Like, that isn't something that is inherent to who you are. I think there are very few things in the world that people are just inherently good or inherently bad at. Unless they have, you know, like, unless it's like a Michael Phelps thing where, like, you become good at something because of some special, like, genetic makeup that you happen to have that gives you an advantage in something. But even then, like, you may never become the best at something because of X, Y, or Z reason. Like there may be something that precludes you from being the best at something, but I think you can become pretty decently good at the vast majority of things if you put in the time and effort. And maybe you'll never be the best. But if you put in the time and effort, which of course also like putting in the time and effort implies that you have the time and energy and resources to accomplish this. So that's like another limiting factor, of course. Like, I don't want to imply that like everybody has limited resources or time to do this stuff, but theoretically, I think most people can accomplish or can get good at most things if they have the ability to put the required time and effort into it. So saying that, like, that's what bothers me about people saying, like, complimenting artists with, you're a talented artist, or you're so talented, or, like, say, I'm just a bad artist, I'll never be good at art, like, I don't have talent, or whatever it is. Like, that bugs me, because it's a very fixed mindset, and it's like, I was a really bad artist for a long time. Like, objectively, my art was horrible. You know, like, even compared to the average person, it was horrible, you know? It's incredibly rare for someone to not hit at least the 70th percentile after 1,000 hours of focused guidance effort and something without a major developmental disorder. I don't have any data to support that, but yeah, like, I would agree. I agree with the sentiment of it. Like, I don't want to agree with that exact statement without having any data, but, like, I absolutely agree with the sentiment. When people say they'll never be good at something, I always ask, do you want to be? I think that's a great way of framing it. Like, do you want to be good at something? Like, if I say I'm never gonna be good at running, and, like, there are some physical factors there. Like, my body, my lungs are not really good. Like, no matter how much effort I put into running, my lungs will hold me back to an extent. So I can say I'm bad at running. And part of that, of course, is physical limitations, is that my lungs are not great. But part of that is just me acknowledging that that is not something that I'm interested in improving at, you know? Like, part of that is me acknowledging that I'm just not going to put, until we invent bionic lungs, even then I will not be good at running because I have no interest in acquiring bionic lungs. Like, sometimes when I say I'm not good at something and I never will be good at it, it's not me saying that I do not have the capacity to be good at it. It's me saying that I have no interest in investing the effort or money or time or whatever it is in being good at it. I feel like that's an important distinction. Like, I am never going to become good at knitting. I'm never going to be good at knitting. I will never be good at knitting. And is that because I don't have the potential to be good at knitting? No. I'm sure that I have the potential to be quite good at knitting. Like, I imagine most people have the potential to be quite good at knitting. It's more that I simply have no willingness to try. And I know that about myself. I say that I am never going to be good at knitting, not because I don't think that I have the potential to become good at knitting, but because I acknowledge that I have no interest in becoming good at knitting. I don't have the willingness to try yet. That's true. Maybe one day I will become interested in trying to be good at knitting. So maybe I shouldn't try and say anything about my future self. Yeah, like, there are outside factors, but in before 75-year-old Mylan surrounded by competitive knitters and learns to love knitting. That's true. You never know what's coming for you. You never know. I never say never, as the kids say. I don't think that's the thing the kids say. Yeah, watch me. I'm gonna be eating my words in another 20 years. Anyway, self-evaluation maintenance model. The self-evaluation maintenance model is all about changing your priorities to keep feeling good about yourself. We change our relationships, domains of importance, and abilities in the service of maintaining positive self-evaluations and consistent self-concept. Yeah. I don't know how to put this one, like, simpler, but, like, we change our priorities. We often change what we care about. We change our priorities and things we care about to keep feeling good about ourselves. And to maintain a stable self-concept. Or maintain a consistent self-concept, I think that pretty much describes it. Like, the self-evaluation maintenance model says that we change what we care about, we change our relationship with other people, we change our priorities in life and our goals in life to maintain both a positive view of ourselves and to maintain a positive, and to maintain our current beliefs about ourselves. Hey, Alex, how you doing? Welcome, Alex. We're currently doing a very bad job at being productive. Welcome to the stream. I'm currently, of course, updating my slides. We're on slide 26 of 42. It was originally 39, but we have now added 3 different slides to this. Hi, Alex with the underscores. Yeah, that's true. There's no, I don't see any underscores here. This is exciting. All right. I want to like this. Yeah. Individual differences and situational factors depend on how we engage in social comparison. I see the underscores in my mind's eye. Yeah. The underscores are there in spirit. They may not be there in presence, but they are there in spirit. And boy, isn't that what matters. Individual differences. Mastery goals. So, do you wanna be good at the thing? Fixed versus growth mindset. This slide is all the stuff that we've been talking about this whole thing, like individual differences and situational factors and social comparison. You're more likely to engage in upward social comparison if you want to be good at the thing. I'm going to compare myself to artists or knitters or runners that are better than me if that's a thing that I want to be good at. And I'm only going to engage in this, and like, if I think that I can improve, comparing myself to people who are better than me will motivate me. So if I have a growth mindset, if I think that if I practice knitting, I can get good at it, then comparing myself to people who are better will make me feel motivated. But if I have a fixed mindset, let's say I'm the type of person who said, you're so talented at art, I'll never be good no matter how hard I try. If you have that kind of fixed mindset where you think you can never improve, then comparing yourself to people who are better than you just makes you feel really shitty. I'm currently reorganizing and cleaning my entire room, so I'm mostly like, good for you! Good for you. I wish that were me. Well, I guess I am trying to be productive, but that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm cheering you on with all of my might. Situational factors. Honestly, if what is internal locus of control, actually finishing the thought of I'm bad at X can probably lead to them realizing they can. That's true, yeah. I can't think of a counterexample of the above. Yeah, if you have an internal locus of control, that's true. Internal locus of control, I think, would be related to high self-efficacy, which is the belief that you can, like, achieve things if you try. Or, like, feeling that you can achieve things. I wonder if those are basically synonymous. Locus of internal control and self-efficacy. I imagine those two things are highly correlated. I wonder if they're the same construct, just with different names. Or if they're just highly related things. I'm not sure. That's a good question. Yeah, because there's no magic preventing you from improving at things. Exactly. If you have a very high internal locus of control, then everything is under your personal control, so you can achieve stuff if you want to. Yeah. Situational factors. The number of comparators. What was that again? The more people you are, the less likely you are to compare. Yeah, so the more people there are, the less likely you are to compare yourself to other people. I think that makes sense. Local comparators. You're more likely to compare to yourself to people who are close to you. So that's the whole thing we were talking about like, I'm more likely to compare myself to people in the same Discord server as me, or people in my social circle, than people I don't know. Proximity to a standard. You're more likely to compare yourself, let's say like, I'm doing a test and I get an 89%. I'm more likely to compare myself to other people because I'm so close to an A than if I am at like an 85%. Where I'm not close to a different grade. This is also in the context of like, you know, tournaments or something. I'm more likely to compare myself to my competitors if I'm really close to like, let's say we're all like, I'm in a volleyball team and we're at like, we're in the tournament and this is the final match that determines if we go to nationals. I'm more likely to compare myself to the other players than if I'm just like in an like I'm at the start of the tournament where my performance isn't the single determinant of whether I go to national. The proximity to standard is like, how close are you to some sort of like threshold or standard? Like if I'm about to rank up in a video game, like I'm very close to ranking up from silver to gold or whatever, I'm more likely to compare myself to other players than if I'm solidly in the middle of the silver group or whatever. And then social category lines. I'm more likely to compare myself to people in my own group than I am to compare myself to people in other groups. Or I can also compare my own group to other groups, but mostly that's going to be groups that I'm competing with. So I'm more likely to compare my volleyball team to teams in the same league than my volleyball team to a team in a league on the other side of the world. Which is also related to proximity, or like local comparators. I'm more likely to compare myself to people in my group to people in groups that are in the same sort of social circles as me, or area as me, whether that's physical area or, you know, like social area. But accuracy is not always the goal. We don't always want a realistic picture of who we are. That's a fun thing. That's the true about a lot of social judgments. That's going to be a running theme in social psychology. So we don't necessarily care about being accurate. We care about what makes us feel good. I feel like that's a problem. That's one of the major problems that I encounter in my field of study is human beings and like sentient creatures don't necessarily care that much about the truth. We care about what we want. Like, it's a problem. It's a problem. But I think this slide is fine. I don't think I need to update this slide. Maybe I should add like some motivated reasoning. Sometimes they'll seek information to enhance their self-esteem. Self-serving biases. I'll only look for information that makes me look good, or I'll only engage in downward comparison to make myself look good, or whatever. Okay, self-esteem. Self-esteem, the evaluative component of the self. How we feel about ourselves. Do we feel positive or negative? Or like, where do we feel? How positive, how negative? Yeah, I'm gonna add a little clarification into this slide. That doesn't mean more text on the slide, which I try and avoid, but I think adding more text, if it improves clarity, is good. Consists of both positive and negative. So self-esteem is just positive and negative beliefs and assessments about yourself. It's continuous. It's not just high or low self-esteem. You're usually somewhere in the middle. You don't just have high or low self-esteem. You're probably somewhere in the middle. Yeah. I might add some animations to this slide, so like things come in a bit more gradually. I think it's good to like reveal information on slides gradually rather than presenting it all at once, because at that point it can get kind of overwhelming. So I try and like, here's a bullet point at a time, so that you're not like trying to read all of it and getting distracted by future things or whatever. Right? Self-esteem stability varies. Some people's self-esteem is incredibly stable. Some people's self-esteem is not at all stable. Where's that, we're so back meme? I think that's a good example. Show me the graph. But I'm gonna put that in here. Can I find a good resolution one of it? I just want to find, oh my gosh, everything, memes are just, I just want, no, that's not it. I sent you one. Oh, thank you, Maury. Yeah, that's one of the lower resolution ones. Yeah, I'm looking for a better resolution. Maybe I'll have to make my own meme for this, because this is also, like, about, like, this isn't about self-esteem, it's more about emotions. What I want is, like, basically that, but with self-esteem. Like, I'm the best versus I'm the worst versus I'm the best versus I'm the worst. So I might have to make my own. The best you get is screenshotted only 3 times. Right? Isn't it awful? I'm getting... Ugh. Maybe I am a genius. Oh no. Maybe that might be the best. That might be what I have to do. I might have to use that one. I need to find, like, I know this exists. I know that there are memes out there that's like, I'm the best, I'm the worst. Like, but I don't. No, no. Oh, this'll work. This'll work. I'll just crop this. It's very important to get good memes to illustrate concepts. There we go. Perfect. We found an adequate meme to illustrate low stability self-esteem. There we go. And self-esteem, the whole point of the slide is self-esteem isn't fixed. Some days you might feel great about yourself, other days you might feel really bad about yourself. And for some people, their self-esteem is really stable, other people, their self-esteem is all over the place. Oh god. Can I just, you know, like, okay. Here's a dilemma I have. There's this very popular theory in psychology called terror management theory. And terror management theory is extremely well known. It actually recently won an award for, like, being a really popular theory in social psychology. But also its findings don't replicate well, and honestly it sounds like bullshit. So, like, I'm debating, do I want to mention this? Because this is like a well-known theory in social psychology. But also, it doesn't really hold up well, and it sounds stupid. So, like, do I want to teach my students about it? Or don't replicate? It's better that way. I'm gonna see if I can find, there was that textbook I was looking at earlier. I'm gonna see if there's another theory about what the purpose of self-esteem that I can find that is better than this. Let's see. Because I currently have like one thing on self-esteem, one theory about self-esteem that I like. I really do not like terror management theory. I really don't. It's measuring self-esteem, implicit okay, I don't. Developmental consequences of self-esteem. Oh, there's another one on terror management theory, sociometer theory. Oh, here's another one. I found a third one. Maybe, what do you think? Should I include this one? Should I include this theory I think is stupid, even though it's popular? Do I teach? I'm gonna start a poll. Oh, no, wait, that's not it. I'm gonna start a poll. Do I teach my students about a popular but silly theory? Or not silly, but like, but probably bunk theory. I wanna hear what y'all think. No, it's stupid. Yes. I'm very interested to see how this goes. I want to hear. I want to hear your voices. I'm at least going to shorten a little bit what I talk about for it. And then I might add a third theory on here. At worst, mention it and say it's controversial and don't replicate nicely. Yeah, I already in my slides say it doesn't hold up very well, so there's that. All right, I'm gonna add this third theory that this textbook mentions, which is hierometer theory, which I've actually never heard of, but I'm excited to learn about. I think it's important to learn new things. All right, hierometer theory. What is hierometer theory? Let's learn. Converges with sociometer theory. Self-esteem is an evolutionary function. Does not track inclusion, it tracks status. Oh! Similar to sociometer theory, but is a meter for social status, not social belonging. Interesting. For social inclusion. Belonging is not inclusion. Those are not the same thing, so I should be careful about that. All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to end the poll. All right, so now I've added a new thing to my slides. So we've learned a new thing. So I'm going to be careful with terror management theory. Sorry, I named the theory. Oops. The theory I was talking about was terror management theory, which I think I've kind of talked about before on this channel and why I don't like it, so maybe that's okay. But, oh my god. Oh my god, why are people from other universities reaching out to me personally to ask if I'll teach a class? You already said it. I'd already said it? Okay. All right, well, fine. Yeah, it's terror management theory. I think terror management theory is stupid. I would say yes if you can essentially say this is popular, but kind of, yeah, that's my plan. That's my plan. My plan is to say this is a popular theory. It recently won an award, but it's kind of stupid. And I think a lot of, I don't even know why it's popular, because I mean, this could be an echo chamber thing. It could be that I'm just talking to certain people, but most people that I've talked to agree that it's pretty stupid. Maybe stupid isn't the right word. I think it's not a good theory in that it doesn't seem to actually predict behavior very well, or it doesn't seem to predict findings very well. Like, we're constantly finding things that aren't consistent with it, and I think if it was less specific, it would be a better theory. Like, usually it's good for theories to be more specific. I think if it was less specific, it would be better. And there's less specific versions of it that do perform better in terms of testing and replicability. But, okay, there we go. How do we maintain high self-esteem? We lie to ourselves! Self-serving cognitions is a nicer way of putting it. Rationalizing. Thinking about things in a way that reflects positively or less negatively on you. So basically, it's not my fault that this went wrong. So let's say, like, I don't know. Self-serving cognition, self-serving attributions. When you do well, yay, I did good. When I did badly, it's somebody else's fault. And false consensus effect, overestimating the extent to which others agree with our opinions, yada yada. Okay, I think these slides are fine. Oh, the better than average effect is like one of my favorite funny effects to talk about. It's just so silly. It's just inherently silly. I love the better than average effect. It's fun. And plus I can play games with my students when I talk about it, like, hey, guess this, guess that. Alright, self-handicapping, yada yada. Positive illusions. I'm nearly done with this. I'm nearly done getting through these slides. And when I'm done, I'm gonna end the stream. But we're almost there, guys. We almost did it. And then after that, I'm gonna go to the grocery or something. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I think food is important. I'm hungry. I have had one scone today. I have eaten exactly one scone. What has happened in my life to bring me to this point? It was a really good scone. It was a good eat snack. I don't really have many snacks around. That's my problem. I got cheese and crackers, but I accidentally got shredded cheese instead of, like, sliced cheese. That's my problem. That's why I need to go to the grocery. I need to go get... It was a good scone, though. It was chocolate chip and almond. It was a very yummy scone. I love scone. The first scone I had was not very good. I was like so excited for scones because I grew up reading Redwall and they eat scones a lot in Redwall, and then it was really dry. It sounds like you are with food like I am with sleep. I'm always sleepy too, I'm not gonna lie. I'm always... Oh man, you know, I have this problem where, like, when I'm hungry, I cannot help but say that I'm hungry. Like, if I get past a certain point of hunger, I just start involuntarily saying I'm hungry. Which is a problem, because it's made some of the people around me assume that I'm a glutton. When really, I'm not a glutton. I'm not. I'm not a glutton. I just... When I'm hungry, I cannot help but say that I am hungry. And so, like, I was at a lab meeting once, and I said something along the lines of, like, somebody offered me some food, and I said, oh no, I'm saving room for blah blah blah. Or, oh, like, I'm saving room for blah blah blah, or oh, I just ate lunch, so I shouldn't eat anymore. And my PhD advisor looked at me. She gave me this look, and she was like, what do you mean you're not hungry? Or, what do you mean you're saving room? You do that? Or, you're not hungry? You're full? Or, what do you mean you don't want to eat? Like, what kind of person did you think I was? I just assume you didn't eat. Yeah, that's fair. I might not be the best at regulating my food. If it's past 2 a.m., I'm also mentioning the time a lot. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. If it's past 2 a.m., something has probably gone wrong. If you're still awake past 2 a.m., something has gone wrong in life. And I'm not saying that doesn't. I'm saying this as somebody who used to routinely stay awake past 2 a.m. for no reason in particular. I don't know. Like, I'm a night owl, but that seems a bit much to me. But I know for other people, like, being a night owl means being almost literally nocturnal. Astral. I worry about your sleep schedule, Astral. I know it's really not my place to worry, but I do worry. I worry about everyone's sleep schedule, whether it's my place to worry or not. And really, a lot of the time, I have no right to be worried about other people's sleep schedules. Alright, sorry, I locked in for a second there. I mean, that's good. I should be locking in, but also I feel like me locking in is not necessarily good stream content. Da-da-da. Alright, I'm done. I'm done. I finished. I finished. I finished updating the lecture. We did it. We did it. It's over. Good job, team. That only took a little over 3 hours for a lecture that I will probably get through in about 1 hour. Woo! Yeah! Yeah, go team! We did it! We did it! Now! I made it! We made it! This was a team effort. This is a team effort to get to where we are now. And we have greatly succeeded. 0.33 lectures per minute. I'm just a small. You'll use it more than once, right? Yeah, I'm gonna use it many times, probably. Mm-hmm. Good work, team. We did it. The time has come for me to go and sleep. And by sleep, I mean go to the grocery and get some food and get some snacks. Should I get a pizza? Should I get a pizza? I want a pizza. The problem is I always want a pizza, and I can't be eating pizza for every meal every day. That's my problem. Go eat? Yeah! Yes! Yeah. Alright, let me... I gotta put on my going out clothes. Alright. I'm all dressed. The time has come. We can acquire pizza. Well, thank you all for joining me on this journey. We have successfully completed updating a lecture. If all goes well, I will see you all tomorrow to update another lecture. And maybe we'll do better. Get that bread. Heck yes, I want bread so bad. I love bread. Bread is the best thing. Then get a pizza. You're an adult who can make bad decisions if you want. This is so true. But that's also kind of the problem. Especially because I traveled a decent amount this summer. I've been traveling a decent amount this summer. I've been making a lot of bad food decisions. I'm an adult. I'm on vacation. I can eat whatever I want. See, that's as a German, I support bread. Heck yes. I love bread. Bread is the best thing. And the worst part though is I'm gonna have like multiple people visiting me for like in the coming weeks, which means I'm gonna be all the more making bad food decisions. So theoretically right now I should be careful with food, but I do need to go get some bread. I just have the crust slices. Oh my gosh, I want pizza crust so bad. Do I want pizza or do I want pizza crust? Honestly, the answer is yes. I want both. Oh man. Oh man. Okay. Okay. It is time to go acquire some food. Thank you for joining me on this journey. We have accomplished great things. Good job, team. I will see you at some point in the near future, perhaps even tomorrow. Take care, everyone, and have a lovely day/night. Bye-bye!